And we're live. How about that?
Made it.
Okay, nothing's exploded yet. We're doing good. We're doing just fine. All right. So, welcome everybody. Today we are starting a new series on the Stormkeep called Realm Report. And that's going to be a series where we look at tournament results and we're going to examine what lists are doing well, why we think they're doing well. And I think this is a really interesting thing to do because the rule changes in General's Handbook 2022 have been so massive for the game. And I'm just a very curious person. So I just like the idea of tracking where the meta is going to go because I have some predictions, but we can kind of get into that a little bit later. So welcome to the live stream, Dan. How you doing, buddy?
Doing pretty good here. We did a little bit of snooping around, getting together a little report of the meta. It just happens to be on a Monday here, so it's not really a meta Monday, but got the Realm report for you guys, and I'm excited to break down a little bit of what we're seeing in these first 2 weekends of the competitive scene, and kind of see what people are doing, and it's pretty interesting, and seeing how everything evolves.
Mm-hmm. So my predictions. First off, I guess I should explain what exactly has changed, just in case people aren't following everything as closely as we are, because there's a lot of information. So to give people a recap, General's Handbook 2022 has introduced a new unit type, which we call infantry, because that's basically what it is. It's any unit that has no mount, 4 or less wounds, and is battle line. So looking at the units that qualify for that, it's all slow infantry kind of units. Some are a little faster, but they're mostly slow infantry. And those units gain a new veteran keyword, and that veteran keyword interacts with this new thing that happens in every single game called the Proving Grounds, where the player going second picks an objective and says for the whole round, that objective can only be contested by veteran units. So if you don't bring any veterans, you just can't control these objectives. You can't contest them, and that gives your opponent a huge advantage. Even if you bring like a couple veterans, you could bring like 1 or 2, or some people are trying to get away with 3. I am. I certainly am trying to get away with like 2 or 3. But then your opponent can just snipe them down, and then they have that tactical advantage. So that's a big change for the game. It opens up a lot of new play opportunities. There's a new command ability, which we're not going to talk about, but there's a new realm spell, which is really cool, and it makes Gargants like completely useless. Like, feel
Kind of.
pretty much, right? So how that spell works is you pick an enemy unit within 12 inches of the caster, it casts on 7, and then for the rest of the game, apparently, that unit counts as half the number of models on objectives. And it stacks. So if you cast it one turn, then cast it another turn, you would half them twice, taking them down to a quarter. Even just one hit of that makes Gargants like useless for the rest of the game. Like, it's a really sad state of affairs. So it's great. Hey Jack, thanks for joining us, buddy.
Hey. Yeah, happy to be here. Happy to be here.
So in addition to that new spell, there's 2 new battalions that interact with these new mechanics. The first battalion makes all your veteran units count as 3 models instead of 1, and that doesn't seem as important as it is, because when you actually play games with it, it's a huge deal. Like outnumbering a monster with 2 models on an objective feels really good. Having your squad of like 30 ghosts count as 90 models and like nothing's going to contest that, like you have to wipe them out completely, that feels really good to do. So that's a big battalion. And then the other one to counter all this veteran shenaniganery.
Shenanigans.
Yeah.
There's a verb for shenanigans, I'm certain. So to counter that, there's a new Bounty Hunters battalion, and that's any troop unit can go into it. And when the Bounty Hunter units are fighting, they get +1 damage in melee against veteran units, which is huge. That's a tremendous damage boost. So last week we put out a video focusing on Stormcast units and how that scaling affects different units. What we found is that there's a lot of cool stuff that we can use now, like dual hammer prosecutors are actually good and worth using. Dracolines are good and worth using. Storm Drakes do like real damage against the units you actually want to kill. So it really shifted up our book, and I'm sure it's done a lot to a lot of other armies. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to look at every army in depth as I do with Stormcast, so that's kind of what we're doing this series for, is to take a look at how these big rule changes are going to impact other armies. And then there's your usual, new battle plans, new battle tactics, new grand strategies. And I guess every year we're just going to get updates for endless spells. I guess that's going to be a thing, because like if let's say next year they don't update the endless spells, where do you get the war scrolls for the endless spells?
Yeah.
So I guess
No.
they just have to keep updating them every single year until the. Sure, why not? And then other rule changes happened since the last season. We have Stormcast nerfs. Our Thunderbolt Volley got nerfed. Dragons got nerfed. We saw Living City nerfs. They were a big player in the metagame. They had this absurdly oppressive Alpha Strike potential. They were mostly Stormcast units outside of the Stormcast army doing really well. Seraphon got nerfed so that only Saurus and monsters get the -1 damage taken, which means these like mass skink builds are just gonna die in Coalesce. There's no reason to run Coalesce with skinks anymore.
Even worse with bounty hunters.
Oh yeah, it makes Saurus look really good in comparison. So I really like that. I like anything that improves the internal balance of an army, giving you more options, more stuff to play with, making you reconsider your choices instead of like, oh yeah, I'm going to use 30 skinks. Of course I'm going to use 30 skinks. Why would I ever use 30 Saurus? That doesn't make any sense. Well, now there's a reason to use 30 Saurus, and it feels good. We also saw Be'lakor nerfs. So for the like 20 people out there using Be'lakor, that really sucks. It's not that few players, but it is a really niche army. It is something you generally only see at GTs, and it tends to do really well because it's a strong army. But removing his bodyguard ability really, really hurts. that's a big nerf. Yep. And then at the same time, we saw. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, like, we're already seeing that a lot. Like, you'll see that here. Like, there's not a lot of Legion showing up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Now, I was hoping Kairos would get nerfed first. I personally didn't have any problems with Be'lakor being super tanky, but it was like Kairos doing this insane damage and then being this like named character that gets used outside of Tzeentch. That always bugs me when you use like named characters outside of their armies. But I think it doesn't bug me with Celestin Prime for some reason.
Right. and you can't nerf Kairos without inherently nerfing the effect on Disciples of Tzeentch, who are not doing well.
Yeah, they're struggling, but we'll see what the new book brings. The worst new book they've put out lately is like Skaven. Skaven aren't bad at all, so I'm excited to see what they put out. And we also got buffs for Cruel Boys, which I don't think anybody expected. Gridden Blades is now a real shooting army because it just can't be shot. That's such a silly ability to have army-wide mirror shield. I don't even understand what they were thinking with that. But there you go. They have it now, so they're going to shoot you and not get shot. And Khorne actually is relevant now, especially in a magic meta. Not resetting Blood Tithe when they use Blood Tithe is huge because you can just every turn you get a guaranteed unbind. Your opponent's trying to cast all these the one key spell per turn, and Khorne's like, no. How about that? So that's great. And the hunt is gone. So that I think that's a huge buff for Stormcast. In terms of our win rate, that's probably going to offset the nerfs to Thunderbolt Volley and Drakes. And so there's been big rule changes, and there's been big meta changes in addition to just more and more armies coming out. Like we've got Sylvaneth in the game now. They're a big player. Skaven aren't really making a splash. I think it's going to take some time for people to figure out the Skaven book. It's nuanced for sure.
Yeah, I think that's what I think. I think that what we're going to see is it's going to be a hot minute for Skaven to really kind of get their feet under them, and when they do, it's not gonna. We're going to be drowning in rats.
It's cool. I'm excited, man.
Me too. Me too.
Give it a few more weeks and we'll all be drowned men. That's
terrible.
It's just because we've been looking at the slides for a day now. So, so there's been some pretty big rule changes. And Dan, you pitched this idea to do a regular series, which I love, to just compile a whole bunch of lists and talk about them. So this is your show, man. Let's lead the way. Let's jump into the first list here.
Yeah, let's take a look. Really excited to do this kind of show to really bring a we talk a lot about our theory and such. This is more of looking at what's I guess actually happening. And speaking of which, let's look into that. We just did our doc video, and this was a pretty cool list to see pop up from the doc video from Thomas Guan, and he was over at the Summer on the Coast GT, taking second place with his daughters of Khaine in Hagnar.
And it doesn't have Marathi. Look at that.
It doesn't have Marathi. Yeah. It's pretty great. You'll notice the triple heart renders, which is pretty interesting as well. Obviously, those battle tactics being really important. So being able to pretty much guarantee those and just lean into it is really neat. I can tell he played this list much more tactically than just slam Morathi forward and then start meleeing everything. The Hag Queen on Cauldron is of course a staple. Some pretty good things. He did take the Bloodstalkers, which is pretty interesting to see without Morathi, because most people would think you would never take Bloodstalkers without Morathi. And they're still effective. They're still going to do their job, picking out targets, putting wounds on things that need to be, scared of them. And the Blood Sisters, they just do a lot of work.
Yeah, the 10 Stalkers is really interesting. We talked about this in our Daughters of Khaine review, so if anybody happened to watch like the 5-hour video we put out on another army that's not Stormcast, kudos. But we talked about this, that it seems like 10 Bloodstalkers is like every Daughters of Khaine list needs to have 10 Bloodstalkers, unless you go like super heavy witches. But those 10 Bloodstalkers clear screens out, which if you don't have Morathi to tank things for 3 turns, or 4 turns I should say, then you need those Stalkers to clear out screens because you just can't take a hit. So like you have to pick the engagement you want when you want. But like, when you're running Morathi, it feels like a different army because she tanks everything, which gives you the opportunity to set up the combats you want to set up, and then she double taps the Bloodstalkers, which is like, instead of being this pesky shooting unit that clears out screens, it's like, oh, they're gonna kill my whole army over 4 turns. I have to deal with them. So this is cool. I'm glad these lists are actually doing well because I hate seeing Morathi in every Daughters list. it's just boring. It's so boring to play against.
Some pretty cool things as it went through on its path to victory. I thought that was cool. It went against a Sylvaneth list with Laushant Earthu combo. That's a pretty neat thing to start seeing. Some people leaning into some of these really cool combos. It had some great swords. It had a purple sun. It was very spell heavy, which is pretty cool. It had another matchup with the Daughters of Khaine list, and this one being a Cauldron with snakes. So it didn't also have Morathi. So that's again another list not running Morathi. Went against the Stormcast list, some Fulminators, Raptors, Aventus, kind of, typical Hammers list you might see. And its only loss was to, actually, it's going to be our next list, to Kharadron Overlords with a Purple Sun.
We'll talk about it. It's on the list, yeah.
We'll get into that one here. And then finally it went against a Alariel list that was kind of interesting. It was a kind of almost hero leaning Alariel with like Earthu and such. So there's a lot of really neat things happening in the meta. But this list was really cool. I'm really happy to see non-Morathi lists, not like as a like salty, I don't want to face Morathi anymore. It's just cool to see variety.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the points in this list, because I've still got my mind on Daughters after doing that review. But there's a few interesting things going on here. The double battle regiment. You'd think that if you weren't taking Morathi, you didn't care about a 1-drop. Like it shouldn't. I guess this list didn't need bounty hunters and conquerors. Like, the damage output is fine. I guess like 25 Blood Sisters are going to cut through most enemies.
I think what it was definitely trying to do, because with the 2-drop, you notice this list, it's going to explode on contact with something like Ironjawz, for example, if they get the jump on you. And we've been seeing a lot of people run, like, 3-drop is the new 1-drop. And so, like, Ironjawz going 2 bounty hunter units, and then a 1-drop, making a 3-drop, this can get the drop on that.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what he was going for here a little bit, is getting the drop on the 3-drops.
Yeah, that would be my guess.
Yeah, there's also the 3 units of Heartrenders. I really like that. You can't usually afford to bring that when you run Morathi. She's too expensive, and because you need the 15 Bloodstalkers too. So and then you need your battle line. So like you just run out of space to bring 3 units of Heartrenders. You mentioned the battle tactics, but like the Daughters of Khaine battle tactics are very good. However, reliably, you're going to do 2 of them per game. Even if you bring 3 units of Heartrenders, you're not going to get all 3 generally, because one of them is like you have to charge 3 units at a time, and like this list actually might have trouble doing that, because you want to hold back your Heartrenders like turn 1 to score one of the tactics, turn 2 to score another tactic, and then turn 3 like you fill in other tactics as you do it. So like this, having 3 gives you the option to almost always score 2 of the 3 good tactics, because the other battle tactics for Daughters are not good. Like there's 3 good ones and the rest are trash. In matchups where you need them, they're a good defensive screen. Like you just put them on the table in front of Ironjawz, and like they just take the hit, and then you counterattack and you kill them. So yeah, really, really nice unit. I really like them. And Hagnar is an interesting choice, because you think if you're going this heavy on snakes, wouldn't you go Zainthar Kai? Like it does have a Hag Queen, but it doesn't have the Sacrament of Blood prayer. So it's not going to try to race one unit up the table. So I think what this list is going to try to do instead, with Blood Rack Shrine having Melusai and the Hagg Queen having Witchbrew, you pump up both your melee units to give them +1 hit on turn 1, and then +1 hit, +1 wound on turn 2. So I'm pretty sure that's what this list is trying to do. So Hagnar is an interesting optimization for that, having 2 different hammer units get buffed, which isn't really something we explored in our review. Usually when we talked about Daughters of Khaine, it was like, okay, we're going to throw all the buffs on one unit, and then everything else is kind of disposable or just gets like tertiary buffs, like passive auras and things like that. One thing I kind of don't like about this list is the Zealous Orator. I don't know how useful it is, because like your 10 Bloodstalkers are just going to die before it matters, and your 15 Bloodstalkers either wipe out everything they're fighting within like it's a double turn bonus is what is happening. So I think I would have gone Arcane Tome, Master of Magic, Mindrazor there instead.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm also curious about the Crown of Woe. I'd like to pick Thomas's brain about this and see how useful all this stuff was. Because like they seem good in a vacuum, but I think the actual performance of these enhancements isn't as good as it seems.
I think Crown of Woe is probably best on a Cauldron anyway, just because it is something that really wants to get in there, more so than some of the other heroes.
And it does have a big base too, which is cool.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's got that big base to increase that aura range.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
it does still have Mindrazor on the Blood Rack as well.
It does, but without a +1 and without a reroll, it's like 8+ is rough, man. It's like trying to cast. It is like casting Purple Sun, right? So, and Mindrazor isn't like it's really good on witches. It's just good on Blood Sisters. So I guess you don't need to get it off. I think it's like when you get it off, you might pivot. Really you might turn your 10 into like a super kill unit that goes to kill the save stacking Kragnos or something. So I can see it. It's not the linchpin of the list, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then Heart of Fury, I guess, giving up a prayer and hoping it doesn't dispel itself. I guess there's points left over. I think that Heart of Fury could have been something else. Could have been some kind of endless spell for them.
It's nice to have, because your snakes are going to be, they're going to be GVs here. So it's something that you're trying to avoid, is taking that damage. So that's still pretty strong.
I wonder if people are playing Heart of Fury correctly, that you have to roll the dice for it, even if you don't have any combat. So like on your turn, if you set up defensive play, you have to roll the dice, and if you roll a 6, it's gone, and then it's like,
yep. Every time I played against it, that's how we've rolled it.
Okay, I wonder, because that's an easy thing to miss. Yeah. But it's cool. Yeah, we expected Daughters of Khaine to do well. They're positioned well. Like their units are so fragile that taking more damage from bounty hunters doesn't matter. And this one just skipped over all that stuff and said, you know what? Everybody else is going to play Conquerors and Hunters, and I'm just going to go first or go second in round 1 every time.
So I think something we're going to see going forward is a lot more battle regiment than you probably expect looking at all these lists. It's interesting to see how this meta is going to evolve, and I think we were talking about a little bit earlier in our first GHB video how this is kind of almost the second stage of the evolution.
Yeah. Let me break that down for anybody who's unaware. So I'm kind of predicting that the metagame is going to evolve in a series of stages. The first stage is people are going to see that their veteran units can now fight in 2 ranks, which is really cool. So they're going to bring like big blocks of these guys that used to be totally useless, stuff like, I don't know, Retributors, just they're not good, but that kind of unit, right? Which was like, oh, it could only fight in 1 rank, therefore it's not good, but now it can fight in 2 ranks, so it's good, cool. And Proving Grounds, cool. That can use both of these things and do well. So that's stage 1. And then stage 2 is like, oh, well, if everybody's using veterans, I have this insanely powerful battalion that gives my units +1 damage. And in some cases, that's doubling the damage output for certain units. So cool, I'm just going to take that, and I'm not going to take any veterans, because why would I take veterans? Like I'm going to take, maybe a couple cheap ones, throw them on the side or whatever, and I'll just kill the enemy army before it matters. And then stage 3 is the response to stage 2, which is like, oh, well, if people are taking bounty hunters, and let's say I'm a Nighthaunt player, I don't have a choice, I have to take veteran units, then I'm just going to take the absolute biggest veteran units I can, stick them in Expert Conquerors, and save stack on them like crazy. So that I can't get taken off objectives, and even though I'm taking bonus damage, because I count for 3 models, you have to like completely wipe out my unit in order to take that objective. So that's stage 3. Stage 4 is then, okay, well, how do you beat Expert Conquerors? Well, you bring in monsters to get rid of save stacking, so that your bounty hunter units can actually fight properly. So it's going to create this interesting paradigm where no list can go like not to say no list can go, but lists should try to be as balanced as possible between bounty hunters, conquerors, and monsters, and kind of balancing all these different factors together to have the most synergistic list, deal with most opponents. And then in terms of drops, that's going to get reflected as probably like 3 drops is going to be the standard. You're going to go like good killing units and minimum GVs, or you're going to go heavy GVs and just try to survive. So that's kind of the stages we're working through. And I think this one is intentionally or otherwise, I think it's at like stage 4 already, where it's like, I don't need any of that stuff. I'm just going to go battle regiment and play a solid game regardless, because looking at it, it doesn't need any of that stuff.
Yeah, Tom is a very good player, so you'll see his name a lot.
Okay.
Doesn't surprise me.
Ready for the next one?
Go on. Yeah. Looks like we got a list from, I'm going to butcher this, Jeremy Veysseire. And he's playing his Kharadron Overlords here. Playing it, of course, at somewhere on the coast, taking first place here. Interesting because it's, of course, taking advantage of the Purple Sun, which a lot of people correctly identified being a pretty good combo. And, KO are missing Rend. That's a lot. That's been a lot of their issues. And lo and behold, AoE -1 to save comes in. So that's something that he is trying to take advantage of here, which is great. Definitely a good list tech. One thing we'll note, just to touch on it a little bit, was played a little incorrectly in that you do have to, you can only control an endless spell if you have the wizard who actually summoned it. And unfortunately, the Aether Chemist doesn't count as a wizard. He just summons it. So it would follow turn order. You would control it on your turn, and then next player turn, they would control it. So it can still do its effect pretty well. It would kind of move back and forth. But it is something to note. Mistakes happen. It's all good. It happens.
Mm-hmm. It's a really niche interaction, so it's understandable.
Other than that, it seems like a pretty, I wouldn't say like too crazy of a departure from a normal Kharadron Overlords list. It's cool that he went for no Skyport, so he did build a custom code. So that was pretty interesting, and he was the only one to beat our previous Daughters of Khaine list.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, a neat list to shout out for sure.
I guess we gotta. It's hard to speculate how impactful, let's say, misplaying that Purple Sun interaction is, because if you can control a Purple Sun every single turn after casting it guaranteed turn 1, that's assuming it doesn't get dispelled immediately, which could happen. But that's potentially a lot of value. So it's hard to predict exactly how this list would have gone if it had played the Purple Sun correctly. But the theory is awesome, right? Like, you've got a bunch of weak shooting, add a Purple Sun. Now it's all Rend 1, Rend 2. So I love that. Stormcast do that pretty regularly now.
Yeah, I'm liking the Croncast style. It's really cool. Played it like 4 times now, and I'm loving it.
It's great, especially Tempesters. They're a fantastic unit for that.
So cool.
Yeah, so what do you think about the drops here? So this went Battle Regiment, but obviously because it went frigates, extra frigates, they can't fit in the Battle Regiment. You can only have 1 behemoth.
I mean, he's still going for the 3-drop, so that's still kind of the new 1-drop, unless you're going, for that counter meta style that Tom went in the last list. So it works out. I don't think he was going to try to do the, what's the behemoth combo that you can do? Is that one still in the line breaker, I think?
There is a line breaker, yeah. I think it requires a commander and then 2 behemoths? I've honestly never seen it. I've never seen anyone use it.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I actually have seen it only in, ironically, a KO list, but I think, of course, he was trying to get the drop here, which is going to be something that, a 3-drop being a good goal to have. So, and he wants to take that first turn 100%, and or control actually go into second in a certain list as well, depending on how good he can deploy.
I wonder if something like, I don't know how good Thunderers are right now, but maybe you could reduce the drops here if you swapped out a frigate for the equivalent points in other units in the army, right? Because you can fit 5 units in that battle regiment, and he's only got 3 of the troop units filled. So he could have gone for less drops if he was so inclined.
Yeah, he could have. I mean, it's nice to have the mobility of the frigates, options, I guess. It's really good.
How about this Slanesh list here? Incarnate Sigvald, Is that exactly what it sounds like? It's a Slaanesh list using Sigvald, the Incarnate, and then whatever other
Hey,
nonsense?
before we move on,
Enemy.
I wanted to double check because it surprised me that Jeremy would have gotten a rule run like this. So I'm looking at 1951. Control of an endless spell is not limited to a wizard. It says the model that summoned it, and goes on to say a wizard.
The model that cast the spell.
Mm-hmm.
You have to actually cast the spell, and spell in a bottle doesn't cast a spell. It just summons it.
A predatory endless spell within 30 inches of the model that summoned it is controlled by that model, period.
Oh, we just looked at this before the stream. Hold on.
Oh, I could have sworn, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, right? Because I was like, this seems really weird. Like,
all right, I'm gonna look into this. If you want to keep the show going.
Yeah, we'll just keep going here. I will say that Sigvald list had it was Sigvald Incarnate with the Crowed Epitome, a Bladebringer as its general on Chariot, which is kind of cool, and then a bunch of Blissbarb archers. So he was really relying on that Incarnate to run forward.
I've played that list.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that Beasley's?
Pretty well. Yes.
Is that Matt's?
Yeah, he went fourth in that tournament, so really good list still. That was a pretty interesting one, and of course he went against Tom in his fourth round. He was Tom's only loss. And seeing that Nighthaunt pop up, of course, going to top table for the fifth round, it doesn't surprise me to see Scarlet do Nighthaunt showing up in there.
Nope, and we're going to talk about him later.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the first Sylvaneth list here.
All right, this one takes us over to South Coast Series across the pond. And Simon Weakley brought his Sylvaneth in Heartwood with the Reaping, which I believe gives the bonus to move, correct? When they're... It's like a
honestly, it's also fresh. I don't know off the top of my head yet.
Yeah, it's like a bonus to move if you're within range of overgrown terrain, or is it just Awakened Wildwood? It's a bonus to move, and it makes Kurnoth's battle line, which is pretty good. Kurnoth's not being GV because they are 5 wounds each, which is great for them, of course. They don't take that extra hunter damage. This went for Alariel, which is pretty great because she gets to summon, and she has a guaranteed summon, unlike the Lady of Vines, who does have to roll on the 2-up, which don't quite understand why that is. But she's good, so she actually has a hidden extra points. You know, she can bring out some Kurnoth, she can bring out a Tree Lord. It's flexible, which is really cool, and she has a revive, of course. This one went to Chronomantic Cogs, which is a great use because Alariel knows her spell lore, and the Arch Revenant has Tree Song as well as I believe he has his own War Scrolls. No, he has Arcane Tome. Yeah, he's not a caster. It has the Revenant Seekers for bringing back units, getting some recursion going on. So it's a good list for Alariel. Leans into the hunters doing their range damage.
Yeah, and I'm really digging that we're seeing variations of various Nighthaunt lists do really well. Like, that's super cool.
Oh, the Sylvaneth list, but yeah.
Oh, sorry, Sylvaneth. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, that's what I meant.
You've got a couple of those. No, you're good. And
Tree spirits, ghost spirit, who knows? Whatever. They're all spirits.
Yeah, the only loss it took was going into... It actually won against Nighthaunt twice, which is pretty cool. Once against the next list that's in our lineup here, as well as a list at the last table there with a Linder and a Black Coach, kind of taking a more centerpiece model, I guess, focus on that one. And its only loss was to an Archaon Varangard list, which is our next list. Unless you got something to say about Sylvaneth here.
This looks pretty bog standard for Sylvaneth. Yeah. We're still working on our review, but it seems like every list is pretty much going to have a 6 block of Kurnoths, sometimes more. It seems like Kurnoths are like absolutely necessary. Alariel's really, really expensive, and you can see it with this list. Like it's 5 units. That's all it is. Hey, 5 units, 2 spells.
It's kind of cool though. She brings in like 250 points of something.
Yeah, which is nice. I like, especially because one of those things can be a Tree Lord, which is a really, really good model in some matchups, and then like totally useless at others. Like, you're not going to summon it against Stormcast. Well, maybe if they're like playing Grandhammers, you might summon a Tree Lord, but they'll probably just charge around it instead. So
kind of defensive for this list because he went for Great Bows with those Kurnoths. So his real the biggest melee hammer he has is kind of the Seekers and Alariel herself.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see him going for a more, like bringing in Kurnoths with sights, for example.
Yeah, I could see it. The sights seem necessary for Sylvaneth. That's my initial impression, is that like without them, you're just not going to kill anything with high armor. Now, thankfully, I mean, you can see the loss here is against Archaon Varangard. I'm not sure if that's because the lack of sides. Like, nothing in this army, this particular list is crazy high rend, and that army does have spell ignore. They ignore mortal wounds from either from, I forget, it's they always change these rules, but I'm pretty sure Slaves to Darkness Shields ignore mortal wounds from spells on a 5+. Is that right? Something like that.
Let me check. It's been a while since I broke them out.
Okay. Regardless, my point is that it's a high save stacking army that also has good spell negation, and that's, you know, that's you can see why an army like this needs the sides with the Rend 3. So without them, it's going to struggle.
Yeah, the Chaos Rune Shields rule just says when you allocate a mortal wound.
Okay, so any kind of mortal wound. I think maybe I'm thinking of the previous War Scroll, which used to have something about spells on it, but yeah.
And as for one last thing I wanted to note on this one, good combo on this one. I believe it's either Heartwood or the Reaping that gives an extra 3 inches on the teleporting effects. So if you're you can be wholly within 12 inches of an overgrown to teleport. And along with Spite's Wounds Hive giving +3 to charge, not just a +2, +3 to charge. You got a 6-up, you know, rerolling with command point for something like Kurnoth with sides going in, so, and the Revenant Seekers if you need to teleport them, but they move pretty fast.
Is the Warsinger trait the one that lets you cast through trees, or is that the one that gives you bonus movement?
That's bonus movement.
Okay.
That I remember. Yep.
Yeah, because I was thinking with the Hive, that's what this is. Is it trying to launch Alariel forwards?
That's potentially what it's trying to do. I mean, if she dies, you know, in the later turns, you can bring her back. I believe by turn 2, it's at 4 up.
I think it's higher than that.
Or turn 3.
I think it's turn 3. It's I forget the exact number. We still have to work on our Sylvaneth review.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's still a good list. Good stuff. Good job, Simon.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, we've got a Nighthaunt list, which is Scarlet Doom, and I'm so psyched because I predicted Scarlet Doom was going to be like the way to play Nighthaunt. So every time I see a Scarlet Doom list come up and do well, I'm feeling good about myself, because I think Emerald Host is not good enough.
Yeah, Scarlet Doom definitely a really cool one. I just want to note one thing, because from the very beginning you'll notice his drops it was played as a 4-drop. We had a bit of a weirdness with the way the battle regiment was marked. He didn't have enough units to have the double battle regiment. That's just one thing to note on this list. Again, you know, mistakes happen and such. But looking into it here, it seems he went for the all rock tech, which is kind of interesting. I've seen that a little bit with the guy on the horse. Gosh, I can't remember his name. He can
Dreadblade Harrow.
The Dreadblade Harrow. For some movement. Going for huge Bladegeist Revenants as well with Expert Conquerors is pretty cool, and being able to move them around with all rock is an interesting tech.
Well, I think the reason it went for it is because if you look at what this list is trying to do, it's trying to Alpha Strike, or at least pin the opponent. It's got 50 Bladegeist that it's going to want to put up in your face, and then with Allrack, teleport the support heroes forward, because you're limited to 3 units in reserve with Nighthaunt. So that's probably what the Allrack is there for, is to bring probably the Cruelgast, maybe the Guardian of Souls up, maybe one of the Spirit Torments. Like, it depends on what the scenario is, what you're looking at. So we'll see. We'd have to watch him play to figure out exactly how it works. But 4-1 with a list like this is pretty good. You know, I'm not convinced Allrack and Bladegeist is the way to go. I think you just give up too much. Like a Dreadblade Harrow here would be way better, I think. Double Discorporates, like both your units. So like, you know, if you get targeted with shooting on one unit, you Discorporate that unit, but then the other one just gets focus fired afterwards. So like, yeah,
I mean,
it's
you
rough.
still got Seal of Shyish for that 5-up ward, so you can have
Discorporate on something. It's you know, a +0 caster. There's Unbinding. There's good Unbinding now because Master Magic is so common in the game. So that's pretty rough. But I like the Ruler of the Spirit Host pick here. Yes, I was talking about this in a review, and you know, a 4-up to win the game. it's pretty good.
15 Bladegeist.
Yeah.
I mean, we already think Call for 8 is good, right?
15 Bladegeist that get to be set up more than 3 inches from an enemy. It's like the Kraith for Daughters of Khaine. Like, if you roll that 4-up just once, it more than justifies the selection, and it wins you the game. So if you can play basically without that effect, and then if you ever get it off, like it's gonna increase your win percentage by a lot.
Yeah, it's good stuff. He went for a pretty balanced approach, of course, taking some spirit hosts for protecting those heroes, and the banshees for some counter spells. So pretty good, and double spirit torment for more recursion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how I feel about the double spirit torment here, because looking at how I would approach fighting this army is I would kill the 20 block first, I would bait defenses out on the 30, then I would kill the 10 and 20 while tanking the 30, right? Because Nighthaunt, a big block of 30 Nighthaunt has a big problem when it tries to retreat and charge. It has such a big footprint that when it finishes the charge, it's not like it can go flying past your screen and land on the other side completely. So that is a big problem with that. But the 10 and 20 don't have that problem. They can just jump over your screen and land and fight something else. But the 30 block is immobile. So thinking about how I would play against this, I would focus fire down the smaller units one at a time, and the Spirit Torment wouldn't help. The second Spirit Torment wouldn't help with that.
That's fair. Yeah.
So I think I might swap that out.
And clearly, like the buffs, like Seal Shyish and Shade Mist would be going on that 30 block anyway. So you'd want to focus on something that isn't, as juicy for sure.
Mm-hmm. I'm also a fan of just 3 spirit hosts. I've seen a lot of lists using 6, and I am not a fan of that. I feel like that's too much of an investment for a unit that only adds wounds to your heroes.
And negates your inherent ward rolls.
Yeah, like it's better to have the spirit host than to not have it, because like you never want your heroes to die. If your heroes die in Nighthaunt, it's backbreaking. Yeah. It's so bad. One of the things I've been considering doing just as Stormcast, I think we talked about this about a week ago, is like if you have a purple sun in your list, cast it at the heroes. Like they're going to be all clumped up. Just throw it at the heroes. There's 3 of them packed up in a little ball there, like 3 or 4, 5 in this case. 1 and 6, they just almost win the game off that. It's crazy.
It's not like it's going to do anything else against this list.
Exactly. Yeah. So like, it's worth trying. It's a dice game.
I mean, Path to Victory saw it beat out an Order Motrais, featuring Kragnos and a bunch of Mournfangs. It did lose to a more balanced Sylvaneth list. Sylvaneth list that kind of went for some Seekers and then some Kurnoth. Mm-hmm. So less, with Alarielle in there, it's hard to really shove a bunch of things in anyway because she's so many points.
I think Seeker bounty hunters are so good that Sylvaneth can't pass up on them, because that clearing out hordes is something Sylvaneth can't do. They don't have like crazy high volume damage. Mm-hmm. So I think Seekers or Spite Lancers even in bounty hunters are like a necessary pick for that army.
Yeah, it's pretty good. He went in Stormcast Eternals against an Oops list.
How many dragons did that Oops list use? Do you know offhand?
Yes, it was 6 dragons.
6.
And it wasn't running a Nitroconus. It was MB5C's list in our Discord.
Okay.
And his are pretty good if you're in our Discord, of course. You should join.
His dice are terrible. Report. I feel bad for him.
Yeah, he was running a little terrible there, but he put a little battle report in for that matchup, and that was pretty interesting to see as well. And then it faced a Kharadron Overlords, just kind of a classic Warp Lightning Barrack Sylphin list.
Interesting. I thought they would have all switched to Purple Sun by now.
Yeah, you would think so, right? But no, they just kind of went in on what they were doing before. Mm-hmm. Last match, of course, Daughters of Khaine, Zainthar Kai, kind of a Marathi 15 bow snakes. You'd expect, kind of last season list.
The Zainthar Kai Marathi bow snakes list has a lot of trouble killing big blocks of 30 ghosts. They just swarm over you, and the fact that Marathi can be tied down, but the ghost can't, is brutal. And the bow snakes don't do enough damage to kill those ghosts through Discorporate. It's a lot of wounds you have to do, and bow snakes don't do it.
Yeah, it's mortal wounds, but it's not mass enough. It's just not.
Mm-hmm. And then like Blade Guy's just charging wipes out units of 10 Blood Sisters. Just the charge roll. Like, oh, I charged you. Your unit's dead, and I'm going to pile in behind it. Oh, okay. Thanks. Yeah. Scarlet Doom is insane. People don't see it, but when you just charge things to death before you roll any dice, it's a very different game. It's
Annihilators.
Oh. It's like, imagine. Yeah.
It's you figure 30 of them are going to do on average 10 mortal wounds on the charge, and like it's It's good. It's so good.
What's insane about that ability is it's not like the Ironjawz charge where like you measure like here's the model that charged, here's the unit.
One model.
It's one model in the unit. Like all the mortal wounds get funneled through him. So if you charge like the 30, the 20, and the 10, you're just gonna deal an average, like perfectly average. You roll, and you can roll high on this. You'll deal 20 mortal wounds to something from charging with these 3 units, and that's before you roll any dice. And Blade Geist are good attackers because they fight in 2 ranks. They're going to be on 2s and 2s. They're going to have probably Rend 2. You're going to get at least one of those Wave of Terror rolls off. Those are not weak attacks by any means.
Yeah.
No, they are not.
They are missing the bonus to wound hero.
Guardian of Souls, they got him.
Yeah, Guardian of Souls. So that's a little bit of comfort here.
Oh, they got him. He's in there.
They got a Guardian.
He's in there?
He's
there. My bad. He's got the skill Shayish. Never mind. Yep,
Yeah,
2s and
they've
2s,
got.
really
He's got all the
just-
classic heroes.
Yep.
He's got the bonus to wound, the -1 to wound, and the resurrecting heroes all together.
Yep, -1 damage as well. It's got the trifecta.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
I like Nighthaunt. This I think is where like my mind was at when we were doing the Nighthaunt review, was lists like this coming out of it, not like Emerald Host, which I think is just kind of not very good.
Yeah,
It's okay.
It's
It's
fine,
alright.
but like you could do this instead, and this is so much better.
Yeah. Why do that
Yeah.
when you could do this?
It's really good.
All right, next one.
Yeah, let's do it. Looks like we got Max Soule. I'm not sure how to pronounce that one. I hope that's right. With Slaves to Darkness, host of the Everchosen, of course, in 6th Circle. So we got Archaon with a bunch of Tzeentch marks here. Chaos Sorcerer Lord can't leave home without him because he's literally just better Castellant. And interesting, he went for the Untamed Beasts. I don't think I've seen those fielded too much. Don't think I have too much experience with those.
They're a bog standard screening unit for a lot of Chaos armies.
Fair. He's got the Vanguard, of course, doing their thing because Vanguard are just very good. And Bounty Hunters, they're decent. They don't gain like a ton of damage from being Bounty Hunters, but every bit of damage, of course, matters. He went for the 3-drop because of that, which is really good. I think this kind of leads into a little bit of bringing a big monster to help against people taking their Bounty Hunters, their elite units. Kind of what Paul was talking about earlier as well.
Yeah, these Vanguard save stacking are, you don't get the Bounty Hunter bonus against them. Veteran units that are just going for Conquerors to outnumber you are not going to be able to kill them, and they're going to do a ton of damage back. So this is that kind of natural evolution of where the metagame is going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting to see.
Oh, and you give them Purple Sun, and they just start chopping down elites too. Like Vanguard are scary now.
Yes, Purple Sun. He's got the cogs so that everything keeps, casting. Make sure you get those buffs on your Vanguard, buffs on Archaon, whatever you need it to do. I know a lot of lists, like you're trying to kill the army around Archaon instead of Archaon himself. And so, getting those buffs off on Vanguard to make that more difficult is going to be good. I think this list probably has a little more issues with a multi-objective battle plans. So ones that have like the 6 objectives, for example. We'll have a little bit of issues having to move, Archaon and your Vanguard around. But again, it's not so much so. Obviously, he went in and won here. Went into some Dragon Over spam, some Shark spam from Ironjawz, a Nautilus, like kind of a normal turtle with some Reavers and Thralls, and 2 Sharks just coming by. Kind of a little more, standard lists. Again, another more balanced Ilario list that was some Kurnoth, some the new flies, and then Sylvaneth with some more with Kurnoths and some endless spells, which I thought that was kind of a cool list as well. And that was the top table list as well for the 5-0, so that listed pretty good.
I think it's worth going through these matchups in a little bit more detail. Because we can talk about what made this successful against it. So against the Ironjawz list, Ironjawz are a low rend army. They might be pivoting into Aspect of the Sea to give them more melee rend, but all of their shooting is rend 1, and the only like rend 2, rend 3 is the Nautilus using his Rampage and the King. Basically, that's all you get for Ironjawz. Mm-hmm. So if you fight against Archaon and Vanguard, that's a rough matchup, especially when it's got all these bodies running around that you also have to deal with while you're trying to avoid those guys.
That's fair. He does have the Incarnate in there, which is pretty good into Archaon. It can hold.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Archaon gets lucky. He can de-level your Incarnate immediately, and then he de-levels at the end of the turn if he gets that Slayer Kings off.
Yep, if you get lucky, that can definitely happen. The Incarnate's also probably not going to kill Archaon, so it's
alone.
like you don't want the Incarnate getting stuck in combats. You want it roaming around, being a constant threat. You want its aura of no retreat and charge to be where you need it to be. You don't want it sitting in a combat by itself. Like you want to kill stuff with the Incarnate and then move on with it. You don't want to sit there fighting forever. And so I think that's how the Idoneth matchups went. And then Beast of Chaos. You'd think Beast of Chaos with other Ren bonuses would do okay into this. So I'm curious about.
Ogres.
Yeah, I guess if it's just Dragon Ogres.
They're pretty can openery, so.
They are. From my experience playing against Beast a couple of times, the rend is really high, and so it tends to get through armor saves, but then it doesn't do any damage.
Yeah,
so like you fail all your saves, and it's all damage 1, and you're like, okay, I took 3 wounds. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'd be curious how that one goes, because I'm pretty sure what would probably happen is he's going to screen out with his weaker veteran units and then just counterattack with the Vanguard and finish him off. Because Dragon Ogres are expensive and not necessarily expendable like other beast units are.
And don't forget that this list is including those 2 units of Untamed Beasts, and that's the whole purpose. They're dirt cheap, disposable screens.
And they're not GVs, so they don't take any bonus damage.
Mm-hmm.
As far as them not taking as much damage, I guess.
Doesn't really matter. Like by the time,
That's fair.
I guess like against maybe dual hammer prosecutors and vanquishers, it might matter, but that's about it. Like the weaker bounty hunters, right? It doesn't really matter. Whether a screen is GV or not is almost inconsequential.
Yeah.
And then against the Sylvaneth list, I think this list did really well because of the spell ignore stuff that it's got going on.
Mm-hmm.
Because Sylvaneth needs spells, and I haven't looked at these 2 Sylvaneth lists. How many Scythe Kurnoths are in them?
So this list that he faced, let's see. Let me get that opened up here.
Because I feel like without Kurnoths and the Rend 3 sides, they're not getting through this list. They are the can opener you need for this kind of list, and you need 6 of them. 3 is not going to cut it because they're max 6 damage a model, so 18 damage for the squad, I guess plus 2 for the leader. Mm-hmm. 20 damage is not enough, especially on 2s and 2s. There's failure points still.
Yeah. I forgot about that. This was that was actually the last list.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That was the last list. Its only loss was to this list.
Yeah, and we talked about that. Yeah, okay. So that's what I thought. Like this has great bows. It doesn't have the Rend 3 sights, so it's going to have trouble with save stacking.
Yeah. Like she can bring them in, but it's only 3.
3's not enough. 3's
not enough.
And without an Arch Revenant, it's going to be on 2s and 3s at best. So you want 2s and 2s. You want the Arch Revenant. Yeah. So we'll get into all that in the Sylvaneth review. But those are our preliminary thoughts. And then the other Sylvaneth list has a Purple Sun. But this army, has various ways of spell ignore. You're probably not gonna roll that one against Archaon and win the game instantly. But man, would that be sweet? Oh wait, doesn't he just take D6 mortals? Does he have that ability? There's too many War Scroll updates.
I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, well if he has it, let me know. But I'm pretty sure I know he has a 4-up board against mortals still.
Mm-hmm.
But it says Kurnoth focus. So how many sights does that list have?
It actually ran greatswords, 3 greatswords, and 6 bows.
Yep, that's why. That's why.
Yeah, so there wasn't really a lot of penetration going on, even with the Purple Sun.
If you don't run the 6 sites, I don't think you're just going to have these matchups where like you fight Stormcast, you fight Kragnos, you fight Slaves to Darkness, you fight these armor armies, and you just lose. Mm-hmm. It's really rough for Sylvaneth. Their magic's not enough.
No, he does not have immunity to auto slay effects.
Okay, so the Purple Sun can potentially kill him.
If he gets to the spell, ignore. Yeah.
The spell ignore. That's right. He does have the spell ignore.
It could. 1 in 12.
It can happen.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the first of a few Nurgle lists, and they're all very similar.
There's only a couple here. This is from the American Team Championships, which shout out to Mergonk. I don't know if he can make it in here today, but he did show up and get to go. And did really good. I believe he was 4th overall. We have his list in here as well. So that's pretty cool. He put some battle reports into our Discord, which is pretty great. And really proud of him for his team taking 2nd place. Pretty bomb. But we have here is Branden Voss. Actually a friend of mine. I know him as well. He was 3rd place as far as the individual matchups goes, and his team got to win the event. bringing a Flies Incarnate list featuring Blow Rotspawn, which is actually pretty integral to this list, as well as cool tech. He went for the Nurglings. So he was placing, obviously, some Nurglings in his territory, as well as in enemy territory to keep getting summoning points, which was a pretty cool tech. As well as, of course, Blow going along with the Flies, giving them more survivability.
Yeah, why don't you run through Blow, because I don't think he's a common enough pick. I think people
Really? Yeah.
may not know what he does.
That's fair. So Blob is a monster. He is a native caster, and he's not like on too huge of a base, but it's pretty interesting in your shooting phase, so opponent shooting phase, and in any combat phase. If any units are within 7 inches, he can deal a mortal wound to them. I forget what the roll is for that, but he also gives them, and it's not conditional on the mortal wound landing or doing damage, just the regular roll. They get -1 to hit in that shooting phase or in that combat. So again, enemy shooting phase. It's a 4-up? Yeah. So enemy shooting phase and both combat phases for enemy and friendly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really obviously good. -1 to hit against, something that's already tanky is really good. He's native caster, Gift of Disease, pretty good one. I believe his... I forget what his War Scroll spell is, but it is a debuff that's pretty good. But Blob is just a great pick there, again, for giving survivability to those Flies.
Yeah, this is definitely a lot of Nurgle lists will try this strategy with mass Blight Lords with Drowned Men, and they move and they try to pin you in your deployment. But that doesn't work against armies that can teleport out. It doesn't work against Nighthaunt, who just ignore you and just retreat and charge anyway. But the Incarnate prevents you from retreating and charging. So this is like a all-in pin and win kind of strategy. So it's got the Nurglings there, like you said, generating extra points. It's got Blob to boost their defenses, because what happens when you run the Kronspine is, like, yeah, the Kronspine takes 2 turns to kill, but it's technically it's still gonna die. Whereas your Blight Lords are going to survive probably more than 2 turns. They'll probably last 3 turns. They're kind of like Marathi. Each one of those units is really tough to take out. The Kronspine is technically easier to kill than the rest of the list, but I think that's where Blob comes in. So I'm not sure if this is the best version of that idea, which is like you just more Flies. You could have just brought more Flies, right? That's the trade-off here. But I like the Kronspine for sure.
Yeah, it's nice because and Blob spell, that's what it is. We have Branden in the chat. Shout out, Branden.
Yeah.
And what it does is his spell is every time you take damage on a 2-up, you take D3 mortal wounds, and that's at the end of every phase. It checks that. So any phase that he deals damage to you,
right.
like including Battle Shock, for example, from Contagion.
Mm-hmm.
What I was going to mention about the Kronspine, though, because obviously the Flies have the pregame move, everything kind of moves forward. The Kronspine gives out those rerolls to charge, and that's huge. I've had him against me, of course, get huge charges and get even like around screens or something that I had set up already. So the Kronspine does a little more than just anchor that, and also any enemy monsters that come into play, that Kronspine is going to be hunting them. You're going to want to have to avoid them. He can position that well. It helps the Nighthaunt matchup. If they see Quicksilver Dread, I know for a fact this list went against a Quicksilver Dread Nighthaunt list and beat out. Which, oh yeah, that's right. We have it in the matchups. It was the first list of that day. It was running double 2x3 hosts, which is a little leaning away from your hammers is not going to be great, especially to a list.
Oh, is that the list Mergonk shared?
Yes.
And, okay, yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that list.
Yeah, it wasn't. It didn't lean into its strength.
It's also Quicksilver Dead, not Quicksilver Dread.
Oh gosh.
So it seems like this one's definitely.
I like this better.
A lot of the Nurgle pin and win lists, they just try to drag it out. But looking at this closer, it seems like it actually could do more damage with Blob's effect, with the Kronspine spreading all out attack. I think this one leans in more for damage instead of just. And it's got the anti-retreat thing, which is a nice tech against Nighthaunt as well. So I can see this working. Yeah, I can definitely see it. Plus, 145 wounds. God,
that's
ridiculous.
What I was about to mention. It's 145 wounds if you're counting the Kronspine as having 36 wounds. If you do the math on everything, though, between the 5-up ward and the 4-up ward, of course, in the Lord of Afflictions, It's a 202 effective wound list. And just to give you some context, Gargants, if you do the max amount of wounds possible plus the wards, only reach a maximum cap of 160 effective wounds. So this is 5 Gargants worth of wounds.
You know,
If the Incarnate doesn't heal.
There's like Soul Blight lists that reach that many wounds and then have a 6-up ward on top of it, but they don't have 4-up saves. Like, that's so silly.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here, and it's very good.
Tell me about this. Tell me about the Stormcast list here that he beat out. The Bastion Ballista. Is it actually running ballistas?
It's actually okay. Let me get you the exact count of ballistas, because it's not just one ballista or 2 ballistas even. I do have to find it here. 1 second. I believe it's 4 ballistas, but give me 1 second.
I would say he's playing a 2nd edition list, but he put Bastion in there, and I'm trying to figure out what he's doing.
It's got an Ordinator, a Ventus Bastion, a Relictor, 3 units of Sequitors, 1 Reinforced, 3 ballistas, and Gryph-hounds.
Okay, so it's a 2nd edition army that he added Bastion to.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, it was he matched up into it, and I'm sure that was a grand old time.
But in the Bloodtoofs here, you wrote one Maw Crusher and 3 what?
Yeah, the War Chanter. I did not copy that.
Triple War Chanter. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
Triple War Chanter, 1 Maw Crusher, Ironjawz in Bloodtoofs, so running a bunch of Gorgruntas, the pigs coming in. Of course, the flies can handle that, and he is noting in the chat that he went 2nd every game. Not sure if it was by choice because he was a 3-drop, but there was a lot of Battle Regiment, as you've probably been seeing from these lists. A majority of them have Battle Regiment. I think only 2 are not running Battle Regiment in the list that we're covering today.
I guess now's a decent time for a quick discussion on that. How are you guys feeling about drops versus value? Because I think in the previous season, Stormcast were like, just have as many drops as possible. The Battle Regiment, we can play 1 or 2 on round 1, it's fine. But what about this season? What are you guys thinking so far?
I'm definitely leaning towards getting the most value possible in most of my lists. The only list where I'm not doing so is in a dragon focus list. Like we'll have our Lords of the Storm soon, of course, and in the more dragon focus lists, I'm not going for as much value just because I'm already focusing a lot of buffs. But in my other lists, whether it's the Croncast list or like Annihilators, I'm definitely leaning for more value, and drops giving information is still as strong as it was before, especially with the Nihilana.
Yeah, I'm leaning that way too. I like Conquerors and Hunters and Warlord for extra holy commands. I'm liking just a ton of drops for more information, and because we've got such long range shooting, I feel like I can, if I'm forced to go first, I feel fine with that, and I've got enough veterans in my list to not be completely blown out by Proving Grounds.
It makes Scions a little better too because of the nerf to Thunderbolt Volley. Putting our shooting into Scions so you don't know where it's going to go is very cool. I'm loving having that, especially with crossbows, even with Raptors as well.
Yeah. They tried to nerf us, but they just made us stronger.
they just gave us more tools to use because we start reaching out.
Oh boy.
Oh man.
Okay.
Some good stuff.
Jack, how about you? How do you feel about drops versus battalions right now?
To be honest, with the way I'm leaning right now, I don't care. I'm really not taking Battle Regiment. Because like we've said, right, like it's we're leaning into improving the efficiency and effectiveness. So having access to things like Call for Aid, being able to give our melee hammers run and charge, just stuff like that becomes of greater value. And because I'm not playing Bounty Hunter or Battle Regiment anymore, I'm doing Bounty Hunters and Expert Conquerors because why not have Liberators count as 15 models?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels like Warlord and Bounty Hunter is not the default, obviously, but it's so good that you feel like you want to go. And then once you're at that point where it's like, okay, I might as well go Conquerors. Like, there's no reason not to at that point. I'm already at 7 drops. What's another 3?
Well, and I think for us is that this last Battle Scroll really bit into the intense Alpha Strike capability of a lot of Stormcast lists. The dragons can't move. You can't you can't shoot reinforced Raptors or reinforced Judicators. And that just means that guaranteeing going first just isn't that important anymore.
Mm-hmm. Now, there is an argument that guaranteeing going second is really, really good. We'll have Proving Grounds work and the opportunity for a double turn. Yep. We'll see. We'll see how that evolves. I'm really interested in tracking how our thinking goes on that.
Yeah.
I love bounty hunters, though.
Yeah, it's so good.
Just checking in on our poll here. It had which is the best bounty hunter unit in the chat. Ooh. And I had Fulminators, Grandhammers, Dracolines, and Stormdrakes. And Stormdrakes were way ahead when we started, but it seems like Fulminators are coming up from behind to take the win.
People like their Fulminators, man.
They just do so much damage. 4 damage against ghosts. So good.
Yeah. Any save that goes through, it starts picking them up.
Yeah.
Like Branden was noting in the chat, speaking of like drops, like he picked going second every time here by choice, like he was saying, and I, a lot of that is having to avoid some of the Proving Ground shenanigans, as well as like he's noting a lot of melee lists that were at the tournament. So that's kind of cool how he was actually taking going second. With this list, you'd kind of think, oh, he wants to go first like every single time, and that just wasn't the case. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's saying using his pre-game move to get into cover. I really like that against melee armies because like this list doesn't have screens, so like your Blight Lords are just taking the charges. And I wonder if that's something Nurgle pivots into. Is dropping? I'm not sure what to drop from this list in particular, but maybe dropping like 1 unit of Blight Lords to just pick up cheap screens, veteran screens in particular that can just play double duty as a screen in one matchup, and then as a veteran that can go on Proving Grounds in another matchup. So we'll see how that evolves.
Yeah, absolutely. Like someone was saying, do Fulminators need the damage? They really don't. And like I'll say, like if I have spots open in Bounty Hunters for Fulminators, I'll definitely put them in if it's not like my drops too much. But they're not a priority. Like I'll put Tempesters in before I put Fulminators.
Yeah, absolutely.
As long as it's
That was funny. I was literally just typing that to reply to him. Yeah, it's one of those things where like if you've got the Fulminators that are just floating around, and you've got a spot in Bounty Hunters, making them 4 damage on the charge is cool, but they don't need it.
Yeah. And one last little shout out I definitely want to do from BCP here in the chat. Having 5 libs in Expert Conquerors in the sky for objective control is pretty neat, even when they're not in Expert Conquerors. Just having the threat of Liberators in the sky, so you can't leave your objectives, or I'm going to Proving Grounds it and then hop on it or something, is super nice, because sometimes we just don't need that Liberator screen. Sometimes situationally it can matter, and I've been doing that every single one of my games, is trying to keep a Liberator screen in the sky as long as I can.
Yep.
Just for the threat, and it makes a great mind game. It's awesome.
The more Battletomes come out, the better Scions looks. And when 3rd edition started, Scions was like, oh, Stormcast do exactly what they did before. Cool. If back then we knew the context that they were just gutting reserves across the board from every army, except Stormcast, I would have been a lot more excited for Scions, but it just looks better and better with every new book.
Yeah.
Especially when you can drop in for Proving Grounds. It's such a really powerful thing.
Yeah.
What do you guys say we move on to the next one?
Yeah.
You can finish that thought.
No, we can totally talk Stormcast tactics and strategies when we get to the Stormcast lists.
There's another Nurgle list first up, though. Another Battle Regiment, Pin and Win Blight Lords, but featuring Be'lakor instead of Nurglings and Blobe. So pretty much the same kind of discussion. The Be'lakor list here, the nerf to Be'lakor it's rough.
I mean, it is, but it's only Legion, right?
Yeah. So this is an ally. So he never had that in this list to begin with.
Yeah. So he still has the utility of taking your big unit. Let's say it's Archaon in that last list we talked about, or Alariel, or any one of these a 4 block of dragons, some Tempesters, whatever whatever big thing is causing you issues in Incarnate, you just tell it no. And there's some play around that with having to trying to take second. Like trying to take second now becomes valuable, but if you take second, and even if you double turn, you can have that threat of the Be'lakor Dark Master on you. So that's really cool how that value kind of went up because of people wanting to go second somewhat. So there's still some really cool things going on here. He did take first place, getting the most points in the tournament. All the lists I have from ATC are undefeated on here, but he was first place for highest scoring.
We should
those
mention
don't
with
matter.
ATC, the matchups are because it's a team format. Your team picks the matchups, so you're gonna get lists that like get the perfect matchup every single time, and then you're gonna have lists that get like the worst possible matchup that your team is kind of just throwing away and hoping just to get a high score overall by sacrificing one matchup. So you're gonna see some that are 4-1 or sorry 4-0, and then you're gonna see others that are 0-4, and it's a team format, so it's a little different.
Yeah, it's definitely different.
But yeah, let's look at the matchups in this particular case, because against the first one with Lofnir, Be'lakor would do really well into that, because you just shut down one of the Magma Dross, and then you can just swarm onto him, and its damage output is a lot lower because of that. Against big yellers, I don't think it's good against Kragnos, but let's look at like Grin Blades, let's say, like a different shooting bolt boys list. Right? This doesn't need Be'lakor to do that. Like just swarming all over the Cruel Boys will probably win you the game anyway. But because this happens to be the Kragnos, it's like, well, we've got a Be'lakor. Let's put the Be'lakor into the Kragnos list.
Yeah.
So that's just favorable.
That Bolt Boy list was leaning heavily into the Bolt Boys, so there wasn't really much else melee going on besides the Kragnos. So
I feel like Grin and Blades would have been better than Big Yellers, but it depends on the team comps and what they're looking for.
I mean, he was relying on that, making the Bolt Boys battle line as well, though, too, to make that list work. So that's kind of because Kragnos is quite a amount of points.
Speaking of battle line, on the previous list we were discussing, does Nurgle start pivoting into running small veteran units just for Proving Grounds? And you can see in this list that's exactly what has happened. I think 2x10 Plague Bearers do a great job holding backfield objectives when they're Proving Grounds. You don't ever fall behind, unexpectedly. You have some resources that you can put into that. You just kind of play them kind of center field and then position them where they need to go for Proving Grounds.
Kind of. I mean, I think he could have also leaned into the Nurglings here, just because you do have summoning with Nurgle. And, I'll say that one thing to note on the Nurglings from the last list is it preventing me deep striking stuff was actually kind of interesting. I could have deep struck in my own backfield, where I had, castled. So that was kind of something interesting with Nurglings. But I don't know if the Plague Bearers, I don't think you have to have them starting, to be honest.
Oh, you just summon them in?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine too.
Most things don't need starting army. It's just the grand strategy.
I think for the round 1 and 2, it's really useful to have those veterans though. So maybe like a mix of Plague Bearers and Nurglings instead of just one or the other.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Looking at the other matchups here, this Emerald Host, I'm assuming this had an Olander in it or something.
Let's see. I had a bunch of Hex Wraiths. I'm gonna open up the exact matchup because I think I know which list this is, but I just want to make sure it is okay. It was an Emerald Host running a reinforced Grimghast Reapers, double Hex Wraiths, and then 3 units of Chain Wraths, only 1 reinforced. So lots of more min units.
Okay.
And then the Hex Wraiths for mobility to grab objectives. It had all the basic units, a double Spirit Torment, so we saw that one again. Guardian of Souls Crusader, the works for the Dreadblade Harrow. So.
I wonder why they positioned him into that matchup. Curious. Maybe it was just dependent on the other matchups. And that was the leftover.
His team leader's in the chat, Branden, actually. Maybe if he's still here, he can let us know. But I thought that was kind of interesting that they did go for that. Emerald Host, though, I don't know if that was the play on that one.
And then Bloodtoofs with a Rogue Idol, and a Maw Crusher, 2 great targets for Be'lakor, So yeah, that Be'lakor tech is really good in this kind of team format where you can pick your matchup. Whereas like Be'lakor into Stormcast probably wouldn't be as good. Be'lakor into a typical Seraphon list probably wouldn't be as good. There's just too many things splitting your attention, or they're off the table in reserve. So when you can pick your matchups, I really like Be'lakor. really like him.
That's true. Yeah, it's a lot of value in a team tournament setting for sure.
Because somebody's going to bring Kragnos, right? Like you just know.
Yeah. Someone's going to bring Kragnos. You might see some Archaon, like we saw in that last one.
Yeah.
It's big units. Alariel, also one. Even Marathi, it's great on. Incarnate. There's a lot of neat monsters that we're seeing, which is pretty cool.
I think Alariel's not going to be efficient enough, but that's another conversation.
That's cool. We will get there. We will.
Let's look at the next list. Daughters of Khaine from Joshua Bennett. So this is a Marathi Khaine Battle Regiment Bounty Hunters list. I think this is like the standard list you're going to see for a long time. It doesn't have the 15 Bloodstalkers though, which is surprising.
Yeah, this is the old what I like to call the Daughters of Khaine punk band. It's Morathi and the Bow Snakes featuring Gotrek.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have the bow snakes.
The sisters?
It doesn't have the bow snakes.
Or those are the stalker.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so it's just a pure melee version of that list. See, I read Bloodstalkers when I first saw this. That's why I said it.
That's what I did too.
Yeah, you would think
That's what I did too.
You just see Morathi and you're like, oh well, there's the 15 Bloodstalkers, nice and easy, right? So.
Yep.
I mean, you've got, Gotrek controlling things. I'm not sure, because it being a team format, if maybe the Incarnate might have been a better pick in there. But, I mean, he won all of his matchups. I'm not saying, that he could have done, better there. But I'm not sure if the Incarnate was taken up, because in a team format, you cannot have multiple... well, in that team format, in most team formats, you can't have multiple War Scroll across armies. So you can't all take
uniques, right?
Yeah.
Of uniques.
I believe so.
Well, Kronspine's not unique, so in that case,
Yeah,
you could have
it's not
taken a
unique.
Kronspine across two armies. But
Yeah.
I think that tournament, you're right about that, Dan, is that you just can't take the same War Scroll across different armies. So like if
Yeah.
one army has Kronspine, the other army can't.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And that's
saying.
probably why Gotrik's in here.
Yeah, maybe. I don't remember what the rest of the team had. But I thought that was kind of interesting going for Gotrek instead of the Incarnate, because a lot of the time I'm seeing people want to go towards the Incarnate. It has more mobility, some more utility going on. Of course, Gotrek's going to deal a lot of damage and be kind of more survivable, actually, in some cases, than the Incarnate. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and no shooting.
No.
Pretty...
Gutsy choice. I wonder what I'd have to see the whole picture of their team and the matchups and everything. It obviously did well, so they positioned it into the right matchups. But 76 wounds, man. It's such a weird number to see on a Daughters list.
Yeah. Branden clarifying, it is any War Scroll. You couldn't duplicate War Scrolls across.
There we go.
Wow.
That was pretty cool.
So Cog's here to get a effectively 2+ Mind Razor off on 15 Blood Sisters, and those charging into Kragnos, that's a dead Kragnos every time. So that's or a dead Gargant, whatever you need to kill, it's there. You got it.
You can pin him down with the Shadow Queen. You can pin him down with, well, he probably won't voluntarily go into Gotrek, but I see how the list kind of works. It's kind of neat. Doing its 2 power positions with the Shadow Queen, being able to hold one position, as more of an anchor, and Gotrek moving forward, like gaining control of the battlefield as he moves forward, is pretty interesting. You don't want to move too close to him, give him more mobility from redeploy, that kind of thing. Then having the Blood Sisters behind the screen of Witch Elves, being able to go in as the missile is pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Shadow Queen doesn't deal insignificant damage either.
Gotrek and Bounty Hunters is real interesting, huh?
Yeah.
I never really considered him a horde killer, but yeah, why not, right?
I mean, when you deal just so much damage anyway, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of a break.
Well, and I mean, he's got, 6 attacks, right?
6 or 8, something like that.
And he fights twice?
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
And because his mortal wounds on hit rolls of 6 are in addition, so it's not like you lose damage, right? So that feels good.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the matchups here, he went into Sons of Behemat, right, which was Kragnos, 2 Gatebreakers, and then something. So that's a great matchup for this list.
It's the Little Giant. I've played against this list. It's the Little Giant.
Slaves to Darkness, Knights, Warriors. Anything notable in this list, Dan?
It was a Knights Warriors mix, so it wasn't running Archaon. It's running Ravagers. I don't remember what Ravagers does exactly. Give me one moment. Take a look. So he's running, of course, the Khorne Demon Prince for that utility. Double Chaos Sorcerer Lord for more buffing. One with Arcane Tome for Mask of Darkness, so some CC going on there. 2 min units of Chaos Knights, and then 2 reinforced units of Chaos Warriors, and then of course running the War Shrine.
That list is just all anvils. How does it kill anything? This list is hard to kill, and you face it up against something that has no killing power to begin with. Oh wow.
Yeah. Which of course the Daughters of Khaine list has the power to kill.
Absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, it definitely broke through there pretty easily.
And then the Soulblight Gravelords. Soulblight's a hard army to read from a list.
Yeah.
It's really hard to tell how it's going to play necessarily.
That one had several different heroes. Let's see. Wow. Someone's running. I was actually a lot of the named heroes, so it was interesting. I thought this one was really weird. It was only running a min unit of Deadwalker zombies, and still running Gorslav.
Okay, I guess just throw it forward, let it die, and keep bringing it back.
Yeah, but it was running Radikar, Belladama, Necromancer as a general, Invigorating Order, Carpify, Overwhelming Dread, a lot of the usual ones. A Vampire Lord to help, give out buff. 3 units of Direwolves, only 1 unit of Blood Knights, so min unit, and then 2 min units of Graveguard.
Was it 2 min units of Graveguard with a Necromancer? That's a weird list.
Yeah, it was very mixed. That's why I didn't really know what to put down as a description for it. I was like, it's very mixed.
Which units are in Bounty Hunters? Graveguards and Blood Knights?
Yeah.
Okay, so that does a tremendous amount of damage when you have Belladama, Vampire Lord. You've got all this stuff. You stack up all this stuff on 1 unit at a time and kind of kill what you need to kill, and then otherwise you play the field. I think that's what they're going for, something like that.
Yeah. Oh, 1 unit, one of the Direwolves, I guess, was reinforced, but the other 2 were min. Huh.
Reinforced Direwolves.
Screens for everything.
Crazy.
If I had to guess, that's the unit that Gorslav is targeting. Deadwalkers.
Yeah. Branden in the chat saying that he's got a 20-0 differential against the Slaves matchup, only one in the whole tournament. Yeah, that makes sense. That's like, I don't even need to hard counter that list with this one. I think I would love to see the matchups. I'd love to know the thought process of pairing up these two lists together, because man, that's like almost like deployment victory. It's so one-sided.
Because in a team tournament, you do have to kind of feed people sometimes.
Yeah.
And if none of the other matches were particularly great for that, that becomes the one that has to take the brunt. You always want to try to claw back as many points as you can. And like Branden was telling me the other day, like they actually in their final round, they actually only got first place by 1 point, and one of the players that lost like clawed it back with a 9-11 matchup, which is pretty.
Wow.
That's pretty bomb, getting it really close like that. Yeah, a team tournament is really interesting format.
Yeah. So Flesh Eater Courts featuring 2x5 Blood Knights as allies. That's unusual pick. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting taking the Blood Knights. They were in Hunters, of course. And
Blood Knights are good, but their 10-inch movement is just sad. It's just so sad, man, when they only move 10 inches.
It feels weird, and even like we talked about it with Fulminators, it feels weird to say 10 inches is slow, but when you're moving 12 inches, it is all the difference.
It is slow, man. I don't know what to tell you. Nighthaunt is slow. If they didn't teleport, they would not be a good army.
Mm-hmm. I think Nighthaunt moves 8 inches on most of their units.
8.
Yeah.
So it definitely feels a lot slower than it looks.
It depends on where the gauge is, right? So if like the average movement of cavalry models is 12 inches, 10 inches feels slow, 14 inches feels fast. If the average movement of infantry is 5, 4 inches feels slow, 6 inches feels better.
I guess 4 in infantry, but I don't know how useful a metric that is.
Yeah.
Like Nighthaunt are fast infantry, but they're still a slow army, I'd say. Like you're not reliably charged. If you're not reliably charging turn 1, you're a slow army. That's kind of my criteria, and I don't think Nighthaunt are reliably charging turn 1. Not with anything significant, anyway.
Okay. Well, we obviously play very different games.
Yeah. That's just my criteria.
That last Nighthaunt list we passed over, wasn't like shown here, did have the 2 Hexwraith units just to go out and get those objectives. So it is pretty good when you're moving 24 inches on top of.
And that's what makes Hexwraiths good in that army. Is they're a fast unit in an otherwise slow army.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what made Stormdrakes so good for so long, was they were a super fast unit in an otherwise slow army.
Yeah, not as much damage as Fulminators, but they didn't need that.
Nope.
Let's move on to Ironjawz from Cody Saults. Run us through this one.
Yeah, so Cody was running Bloodtoofs, kind of little bit more typical, Gorgrunta one you might have seen from last season. In fact, it even runs a battle regiment, and that's it. It is a one drop. And I was figuring that there was going to be some Ironjawz just going for the one drop because they deal so much damage, along with the ability to chain activations with Smashin' and Bashin'. You just want to control the tempo, right? You want to be able to control whether you're going first or second, whatever is needed for the situation. A lot of times going second, because you're a little bit scared of the double turn if you get shielded out. But pretty, I would say, standard list. It does have the Ard boys to help out with some Proving Ground shenanigans. That might be a little different than the usual Gorgrunta span that you're used to, but it's got everything. It's got the Mega Boss, the Destroyer, Fasten, the Shaman with the big hand, double War Chanted, Rogue Idol. I mean, we've seen this one before,
Yeah, it's like something out of literally a year ago.
Yeah.
Well, and I was discussing with some of the guys in the chat. Like, I genuinely appreciate the fact that there are lists and armies that can field builds from the previous GHB and still be totally effective in this one, right? The change in the GHB did open up a lot of options and give us the opportunity to go back and evaluate our battle tomes, but that doesn't mean good units in good lists are suddenly not good.
Yeah, I really like that. I was a little worried that would happen because the changes are so massive that it's like it has the potential to just make a whole bunch of stuff really good, and then by contrast, a whole bunch of stuff just useless. But it actually hasn't done that because it didn't take away anything. All it did was add a new layer of like self-contained rules, which is like the veteran mechanic and the things that counter the veterans. So it's credit where credit's due. I'm very critical of Games Workshop, but this update has been so far very good.
Yeah,
feels very good.
I'm liking it. I'm pretty excited for the balance update coming soon too. Let's kind of help polish that.
Let's take a look at these matchups here because I don't know how this list would beat Triple Foxes unless you roll crazy high on.
I
don't even know.
Ironically, I think the list can play the objective game better than the Foxes. Right? Because the Foxes aren't really going to kill stuff fast enough. This list is going to kill everything that's around the Foxes.
I guess you just don't have to kill. Yeah, I guess that would be the strategy. Is you don't kill them, you just outlast them.
Having played against Foxes and this particular player several times, with like dragons, which is basically like Ironjawz, a full dragon list, you kill his army, and then you sit on the objectives, and you threaten. It's just good movement that'll do that, and I'm sure that they had a battle plan that didn't have too many objectives that helped that.
See, this to me speaks of how seasoned a player Cody is. I'm not familiar with him at all, but to understand a matchup like how to play Ironjawz into Triple Foxes, which is like you're not killing the Foxes, and it's not obvious that you shouldn't need to kill the Foxes in order to win. So that's good stuff. Kudos to figure that out. That's got to take a lot of reps to figure out.
Yeah, no, it's really good, and he's a very good player. It's interesting, that Triple Fox matchup. Like it feels weird trying to ignore them and continuing to play your game.
It means they have a good understanding of trading, and in terms of like trading. I always go back to like Magic the Gathering card game terms, which is like tempo versus card advantage. Tempo is like your aggression versus card advantage, which is like your round 5 objective game. And like you always trade one for the other, right? It's like how aggressive do I want to be in order to take away my opponent's ability to do the same. And Ironjawz typically go into the tempo category, while armies like Stormcast and Soulblight tend to go into the card advantage, right? We've got more options. We want to trade efficiently. So an Ironjawz player that knows how to do that is impressive.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
And then they beat Drakfoot because, of course, you're going to beat Drakfoot when you don't rely on wards.
Yeah, I mean, Big Stab is great and all, but again, he's going to chew through everything, just chain activating. He could even split attacks here in some of the units to help chew through. I mean, there's still, each of the Stabbas is 4 wounds, so the unit of 2 comes with 8 wounds total. So you do still have to dedicate some hits to that, and they're going to do their fling their spear back at you, but
it's not going to be impactful enough.
No.
D3 won't even kill a Grunta.
Yeah, and it's on a 4-up. So
it's on a 4-up.
Yeah.
So how did this win against Marathi Snakes, because looking at it, depending on how the Marathi Snakes is set up, how the list is built, that seems favorable to me. I guess if it's not going one drop, the control of taking Battle Regiment could have been the determining factor, perhaps.
So that Marathi Snakes list did not bring bow snakes.
Oh,
Again, this tournament had a lot of melee. Like Branden was mentioning in the chat, this tournament had a lot of melee focus.
Okay.
It was running 2 reinforced units of Blood Sisters and 1 min unit.
Was it going for bounty hunters?
It was on all 3 of the Blood Sister units. It had
That's why.
Chimera units, pretty standard. Marathi and Iron Scale and the Cauldron. So it was going for all the tools that it could.
Mm-hmm. Really heavy on the melee, which Ironjawz would do just fine against that.
Yep, you just blow up the Blood Sisters, blow up honestly the Cauldron, you know, and then it's just playing around Marathi. And of course, like you notice, like Cody has really good game sense. He was able to, you know, identify, I'm sure, what are the weak points, hit that, play the objective game, do his wounds from Marathi, keep going.
Yeah, and that's probably how we beat the Thundertusks as well. Stonehorns and Thundertusks, like Ironjawz have a higher threat range. That seems like a favorable matchup. Without Kragnos, Stonehorns just can't outmaneuver other destruction armies.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting that they didn't go for Kragnos. So
maybe it was already in the team somewhere.
That's true. Again, just a good. Oh well, I mean, there's only because there's 1 from each alliance.
Oh.
So he actually did have the choice. Yeah, because you'd have 1.
So you have to have a death player, you have to have a destruction, a chaos, and an order.
Mm-hmm.
Can you have multiple? No, because you couldn't. Only 4 players, so you couldn't have multiple orders. Man, that's rough. Which order army do you pick?
Yeah,
it's got to be daughters.
That's a lot.
It's got to be daughters.
That's what Cody's team went for, his daughters.
So this team went for Lumineth. Triple Foxes is their order army instead of like
that
Stormcast.
Was the first place team.
Wow.
That's Branden's team, and he won a lot of his matchups.
That's very interesting. That's not what I would have expected.
Yeah. Their team was Lumineth Foxes, the Suns for destruction, and Nurgle, of course, and Nighthaunt Death, the one with the hex rates. And they made out of like overwhelmingly won every matchup, but they won everything so much so that they, like I said, they won by 1 point and they made it. I mean, every win counts, every point counts in every single game. Like, It's interesting how that works. It's awesome. It goes to them.
Yeah, see, I'm more focused on like winning a single game, but there's differences when you come to a team format game that also tracks your score between the games as part of your final score. So a lot of considerations change if it's like, you know, losing the game isn't the end of the world because I'm just trying to score as many points as possible while I'm in that game.
Well, it's differential scoring too, so you have to play off your opponent as well.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. This is cool.
Good stuff. All right. I wish he was here for it, but
yeah, no joke, right?
He probably got in another car accident.
Oh god.
Oh wow.
He's not here. I'm allowed to. It's okay.
Oh gosh.
He'll appreciate that I brought it up, probably, maybe. So this is Mergonk's list. It's the Annihilana Grande list that we use, that we've been workshopping for a long time now. Knights Excelsior with a Lord Imperatant, 2 units of Grand Hammers, 2 units of Long Strikes. So you've got this like shooting castle that is launching grenades at you with these Grand Hammers. They drop in anywhere, while the Long Strikes are safely 30 inches away, shooting whatever they want. And then all the other pieces kind of fit into that. So, you know, at this point, we're hot on Lord Relictor, Knight Incantor to stop the Purple Suns and all the other endless spells that are coming out. Unit of Aether Wings and Vanquishers. I think Aether Wings are there, you know, cheap screen, flying fast, they can get onto an objective, and they're also giving +1 hit to both of your units of Long Strikes, which is really cool. Yep. Vanquishers are awesome now, especially in Bounty Hunters. Like, if Mergonk was here, he could tell you that they were pivotal in beating the Nighthaunt player, because they were just chopping up ghosts every single game against the Quicksilver Dead. They were killing a unit of Harridans every turn, which was awesome. So Vanquishers are great. I'm sure a lot of people have the models because they're cool, and now you have a reason to play them. They're worth using. And especially when you revive them with Call for Aid. They die, and then you just bring them back, and they fight all over again in the next turn. And they keep the Bounty Hunter Battalion through the best of our understanding of the rules of this game. They would keep the Bounty Hunter bonus. The most interesting picks, I think, here are the Stormdrake Guard and the Horrorghast. So I've talked a lot about the Horrorghast before, but the reason Stormcast really like the Horrorghast is because we're not, when we use long strikes in particular, we're not like a heavy horde clearing army. That's one of the weaknesses of Stormcast is like, oh, you're up against 60 zombies and all you've got is long strikes, which are doing, you know,
it's not
damage.
enough.
Not enough. Yeah.
Not enough.
Simply
Yeah.
put,
It doesn't matter how much damage it is, it's not enough.
just the raw damage output. You could auto hit, auto wound, everything could do the 6 mortal wounds, and it's still not enough damage to kill some stuff. But then you have the Horrorghast come in and say, okay, well, you killed 30 zombies. Here's another 20 plus d6 that run away. And that's a huge deal. So the Horrorghast also happens to have the perfect range for this sort of thing. It casts 12, or casts 8, moves 12, and affects 12, something like that. I think it's like 32 total threat range.
32-inch wholly within threat range, yeah.
Yeah. So it's really easy to chuck it out there with like a forward wizard and your long strike shoot the thing, and then the Horrorghast easily gets into range of the thing you're going to be shooting. So it's a natural combo, and that's great for only 40 points. There's matchups where the Horrorghast doesn't really do anything, like if you're playing against MSU style Nighthaunt, which only has like squads of 10 dudes, Horrorghast is going to do nothing. They're just going to die before they take any battle shock. But in the matchups where it's good, it's really good. You could argue that maybe Geminids might be better, but Geminids are shorter range and they can fail, so there's pros and cons. And then
Sorry.
I was going to say the last interesting pick here is the Stormdrake Guard, which it doesn't seem obvious why the Stormdrake Guard are included in a list like this, but they actually play a really, really pivotal role as whatever you need them to be. They're such a versatile unit in terms of speed, durability, monster to stop Discorporate so that your Grand Hammers can do the damage they need to, or to roar an enemy that's charging into you so that they can't get plus 1 hit and you can mitigate the damage. There's so many things that the Stormdrake do in this list. Battle tactics as well. Yep, they enable battle tactics, which is great. It's a nice pick. They're very expensive, and I honestly I wouldn't recommend running them for people who are just trying to understand the core of this concept of like shooting castle and then drop Grand Hammers. That concept doesn't need Stormdrakes. They're kind of like a more advanced pick. Like once you really understand what this list is trying to do and what your matchups are going to be. So.
It feels a big role because in an Iolana, I'm always trying to look for what's going to be my forward piece because you've got this castle that's kind of slow, to be honest. Like you're able to drop stuff wherever, but you want a piece that has some speed to it. Like one of the things that fits here well, chariots. Double chariot is something that can easily slot into those points as well as the roll. You want something that can move out and take those objectives and be a presence. Take Unleash Hell, and this one you don't have the prosecutors that we like to have with Annihilators, so you need something to take Unleash Hell for you. Otherwise you can still play around it. You don't have to charge stuff that shoots, but when you need to,
it's another point for Geminids there is that they stop Unleash Hell.
Yep, they do stop Unleash Hell. There's a lot of little things. We'll really get into it in Lords of the Storm, but having a pinning piece like Stormdrake Guard, like chariots, I've even seen people running some Tempesters in there. That would be, that would fill the spot okay as well. I also liked running an Incarnate last season in the same spot for the same reason. Just something to anchor your army and then let it gain territory a little better because you don't expect those Annihilators to live past the turn they drop.
Yeah, the battle plans in this season really focus on holding territory more so than the previous season. Previous season was like you take it for the turn and then it doesn't matter. But this season is like you want to actually hold it because at any point it can be turned into a proving ground and then you can't just take it back casually. Mm-hmm. Like you have to dedicate specific resources to taking it back. And, your Annihilators are proving grounds targets in this list, but they're not really going to be used for that. You're not just going to drop them on an objective like you would with Liberators. Mm-hmm. So let's take a look at Morgonk's matchups here. So the first up he played against Nautilor, which this list does really well into, generally, with the Mortal Wounds from charging on Annihilators, Mortal Wounds from Dragon Breath, Horrorghast to make Thralls run away, Sharks and Turtles kind of just bounce off a lot of your stuff. Like it's a good matchup. Morgonk is very well experienced playing against Idaneth, so yeah, I don't doubt that at all that he would win that game.
He just picked... Oh, sorry. I was going
to
he just picked up an Idaneth army, and so he knows it pretty well inside and out now.
Yeah. Not only did we do a review for I guess we never filmed the review, so that doesn't count. But we did all the slides and everything for the review, and then we did the how to counter them. And he's been playing against them the whole time, and now he owns the Idaneth army. So like, if there's one matchup he's going to be good against, it's that one.
Yeah. And that army, all the battle reports again. I'll mention our Discord plug. He did post in the battle report channel as this was all happening, and I was following that, of course, and. that Ironjawz player moved up on him, and he was able to capitalize. I mean, this list is all about capitalizing on your opponent positioning. That Ironjawz army moved forward turn 1, and it left him some openings, and he got in and killed that turtle immediately. So those dragons got in and did a lot of work. All of his thralls died immediately. The turtle died immediately, and the sharks followed right after.
Yeah, it's rough. Sharks have trouble killing dragons.
Mm-hmm.
That's the coolest sentence I've ever said in my life. This is a cool game that we play. So his game against Nighthaunt, like I said, the Vanquishers were really good. Very efficient way to clear out 10 Dreadscythe Harridans per turn. Vanquishers are great, guys. Consider swapping a squad of libs to Vanquishers if you have room in a Bounty Hunters battalion. They're excellent. Especially Call for Aid, especially in Hallowed Knights where they fight on death and then you revive them and they die and they fight on death again. It's great.
Yeah. They had min units and like I said, they went into the double hosts. I think the double host is a little bit of a trap in Nighthaunt.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's a little inefficient, and that is an army that can't afford to be inefficient because the point costs are way up there. And Kharadron Overlords. I didn't follow this game. Dan, you want to give us a rundown of how this one went?
Yeah, this one was interesting. I believe I'm gonna check it right quick, but I'm pretty sure that the Kharadron Overlords player went first and wasn't able to pick anything up. And he was able to get that list out really quickly. I'm gonna find it right here. Yeah. He took first. Did some. Oh, actually, Mergonk took first. He had lower drops, so he took out that Aether Chemist with Thunderbolt Volley, taking out the Vortex coming in.
Brutal.
Yeah, he just deleted like 2 boats immediately. The Raptors rolled really high on that. It was some good stuff. The enemy did have a Galvanic Staff on the Navigator to half charges, so he specifically targeted the other boat that didn't have the Navigator on it, just so he could get around that. Just little things you have to pay attention with the matchup. Nylana, you have to know your enemy army a little more than some of the other lists.
That's just castle matchups in general. When you play a castle, you have to understand everything your opponent can do.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of also, like you were talking about wanting fast units, that's true of all castle armies. You want to make sure you can have some way to reach out, get to where you need to be. You don't just want to sit there in your territory in a little ball the whole game. Like that's why protector castles they really struggle, because it's hard to find the right amount of speed to go along with those slow protectors.
Yeah, you want to open the gates.
Mm-hmm.
But going with knowing that matchup, he did actually later on target that Navigator with his Dragon Breath, because specifically he of course overcomes the bonuses they get from being in the garrison of the boat. And he was able to take out that Navigator and then take out that boat immediately after. So there was a lot of good stuff. The Storm Drake's taking Unleash Hell, very important in this matchup with KO.
Yep, 9 wounds apiece means they're probably not going to lose anything as they charge in and they fight at full strength.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
And it had an Incarnate. How did Mergonk end up dealing with that?
He actually didn't really.
Just ignored it?
He tried to ignore as much as he could and just shoot it out. One nice thing about Annihilators is a very almost non-interactive method of gameplay, because you don't have anything on the board for that Annihilator to get to immediately. Besides, of course, the dragons. You try to stay away as much as you can. I think he even ended that game with just 1 dragon alive. So the Incarnate didn't really get to pop off and take him out. Looks like by the end of the game. Oh. Yeah, like the Incarnate was still there. Pretty much up until almost the very end of the game. But it was a very close game, like you said, because of that. But yeah, tactical play, man. Good play gets you really far, even against something like that.
Nice. And then his last game against Bloodtoofs, that's a matchup he's quite familiar with as well. We've been playing against Ironjawz with this list for a while now, and now that they don't have that 5-up Amulet of Destiny, it's
really
a lot easier.
I know at LVO earlier in the year he had some trouble with our Ironjawz matchup, but
not anymore.
It's funny. Yeah, not anymore. We've found as a advice to Annihilator players into the Ironjawz matchup, you want to take out the pigs first.
Yeah.
The Maw Crusher seems like a juicy target, but if you take out those pigs, it's just the Maw Crusher, and you can take that out fairly easily later on. You want to stop his force multiplication before he can multiply it on you.
Yeah.
And the Horrorghast apparently came in really well in that game. He was noting. making stuff run away, which is pretty cool. Like just have it out there, and even in a list where you might think it doesn't do too much, it matters. It's there and it matters.
Yeah, it won't really affect us, even though it is a symmetrical effect. The biggest unit in this list is 5 models on the Vanquishers. It's not going to matter. So,
Yeah.
good
If
stuff.
they were getting hit, they were probably dead.
I can see the Vanquishers doing pretty well into like Brutes and Ardboys and things like that. Any veteran with 5 or more models is great for Vanquishers. All right, let's move on.
Moving past ATC.
Another Stormcast list. Run us through it.
Yeah, this was at the Midwest Bash, taking first place, going 5-0. Got Tyler Emerson on Stormcast Eternals with the Hammers of Sigmar. So, like we were mentioning earlier, I think Stormcast really wants to avoid Battle Regiment and get the value, and this is a prime example of that. Got Command Entourage, Bounty Hunters, and Expert Conquerors. He wasn't able to fit the Warlord because of the slots needed for the Bounty Hunters and the Expert Conquerors, but I'm sure that he didn't regret that one bit. That one command point probably didn't matter as much as holding something well with Expert Conquerors. Kind of an interesting list, running a bit of expensive pieces with Celestant Prime and Bastion at the same time. So that was kind of interesting running those unique models. It's a little harder than it used to be, especially Bastion seeming a little less good than he used to be. And always a good shout out to the Knight Relictor tech for being at exactly 2,000 points and fitting in the Knight Relictor. This is the niche.
That's why he's D and not F. Because of this.
Yeah, I mean,
oh man.
But yeah, he took the Command Entourage, he took Call for Aid, always good on those Liberators, probably the Expert Conqueror Liberators more so than the Bounty Hunter ones. And then Unleash Thy Hatred, very good on Protectors. He did go for Star Soul Maces, so he kind of split the difference on Bounty Hunter's value and being able to take out something bigger. That's kind of something we've mentioned in a couple of videos where maybe in Bounty Hunters we might take the spears more so than the maces.
I think that comes down to how many guys are in the unit, right? If you're going to go MSU protectors, you go glaives, you put them in Bounty Hunters. But if you're going to reinforce them, you take the maces and you take Unleash Thy Hatred for the utility.
Yeah, that's fair. They can take out something pretty good.
Because you can drop 2 monsters in one combat that way.
Yeah.
This is such an elite list. It has 4 units and 4 heroes, and that's it.
Yep.
And like, yeah, it can revive the Liberators once per game, but if those Judicators get shot, like this is over. It's so bad.
It's very lean. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very, very lean list.
It's let's take a look at the matchups here, and the first one is Bastion, Durthu, Stormcast, Chariot in Living Cities. So that's an interesting one. I don't see how any of that stuff kills the Protectors, so my gut feeling is that the Protectors tanked Durthu and won the game.
Yeah, probably. It was running a bunch of Sisters of the Watch was the spam that it had, so there wasn't really enough damage coming out. Yeah, I mean Bastion outside of Stormcast, it's a little harder to run.
Really hard to justify. What are the odds you play Bastion and then your first match is against another Bastion, but it's not a Stormcast list.
Yeah, not a Stormcast.
I don't.
It's so weird.
And I like his artifacts too.
Yeah, I would be really interested to know why Bastion was in the list and not the Celestant Prime.
25 points, maybe.
25 points.
Probably. I can't say. The list had 1995, so 20 points.
Wouldn't have fit. Yeah, wouldn't have
maybe.
fit.
Yeah, I probably would have taken out one of the Sisters of the Watch for that, just for I don't know. It's Living Cities is also harder to run than it used to be.
Yeah, I'm not sure Living Cities is the way. I think Tempest Eye is looking a lot better these days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the next matchup there, Heartwood. How many sites?
Let's see. Alaria Kurnoth. That guy up. Looks like we're running so all min units. We got 2 Greatsword min units and a unit of sides.
Okay, so yeah, 1 unit of sides is not going to kill 10 Protectors with +2 to saves. Not going to happen.
Yeah. You'd have to summon an extra with Alariel, and then that's multi-charging, and it's tough.
Even then, you're still looking at 3+ on the Protectors.
Yeah.
Oh, you've got Rend
Yeah.
3? Alright, I'm gonna roll 3s to save. Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What'd you
Especially
say?
to get to all out defense. Like, I don't think you're getting the Alarial into
Oh,
Northern.
I'm not even assuming Mystic Shield on this, right? You add that in, it's like, yeah, I'm still on 2s, what's up? 2 up Ethereal.
2 up Ethereal, basically.
So Skaven shooting focused, yeah, I can see that list going pretty well if you drop Celestant Prime in on their shooting, tie it all down, and I'm not familiar enough with Skaven in the new book to know how that list would do exactly, but that's my gut feeling.
Very shooting heavy. It was running the named Vermin King, Lord Screech. It was running the Bombardier and the Engineer alongside 2 min units of Acolytes,
Mm-hmm.
a reinforced unit of Storm Fiends, a reinforced unit. No, that's a reinforced unit of Giselles. Yeah, 6 would be reinforced, and then 2 Warp Lightning Cannons. So literally just all in on the shooting. Like this was
just the one hero. Oh no, it had an Engineer.
3 heroes. Yeah. Engineer, Bombardier, and Screech.
Wow.
But that's a lot of shooting to lean into, and
that sounds like a lot of like first and second edition Skaven lists I played against, like before they updated the Skaven book. People were just running stuff they liked. That's kind of what it sounds like.
I mean, like the shooting sounds cool, but even us with our great shooting, you have to be able to move onto the board, and you're not going to be able to take any hits if you're that list.
And the Stormcast can just deploy in reserve, drop in, shoot what they need to, and then cool. Now you're playing like 500, 600 points up, especially with Celestant Prime tying down a whole bunch of stuff. If there's reinforced Storm Fiends and one of them gets tagged by Celestant Prime, then he finest hours the next turn. That's rough.
Yeah, you literally have to focus all 1,500 points on one unit to take it out at a time. It feels like.
And then the Protectors come in, and that's it's like, man, I don't know what Skaven do against that once the Protectors get in.
Yeah.
Cool. Then Drowned Men. Yeah, I can see this list beating the hero flies because Protectors just do a lot of damage.
Yeah, they were only running 4 flies, 2 min units of flies, so it wasn't really like.
So hero.
It wasn't all. It's not an all flies list.
Not at all. It was very balanced. 2 min units of flies, a reinforced Blight Kings, min Blight Kings, but it was running Blobe, so the hero we mentioned earlier, the Lord of Afflictions with overpowering stench with Horn Helm, so the 4-up war that we always talk about, and overpowering stench. We didn't touch on it last time, but really strong ability if you haven't played against it. Just within 7 inches, not wholly, within 7 inches, cannot receive or give commands, which is
Mega Roar.
So good. That is.
Yeah.
Oh my
in
god.
all phases, at all times, there's no commands.
That is a really obnoxiously good ability.
That 7 inches doesn't seem far, but he gets the pregame move. He gets to move it. Not in this list, of course. Or not actually. He could. But
Drowned, right?
Yeah, Drowned. Yeah, he could in this list, but he was running Lord of Plagues and then Festus, which is kind of interesting running Festus.
I can see this doing well. I don't think it would kill like the pin and wins that we've seen earlier in this, but I think it would do well into that one. Absolutely. More hero focused. You can, nuke down one target at a time. Protectors tank everything. I think that could do well.
You're talking this list right here.
Yeah, I think this would do fine into that hero focused Nurgle list.
Yeah.
I'd still run it against a pin and win list.
You think so? I don't think it has the damage to bust out. Skybolts aren't high damage.
You don't remember. You have to.
Bastion. Yeah.
Half of your units go in reserve plus the prime, right? So I don't care if you pin my liberators in my deployment zone. I drop everything else I want on the objectives.
I'd have to see the battle. Yeah, it could depend on the battle plan. It could depend on a lot of factors.
I mean, it's more drops, so that Nurgle list will probably just make you go first.
Yeah.
Because they're all running 3 drops, so they'll make you go first and have to commit to the board, and then they'll run into you.
See, that's where Bastion would actually come in handy with some long strikes. You could redeploy after being told you're going first.
Yeah.
Well, or at this point you could redeploy whatever you need. Right?
Yeah. I mean,
I would totally take this list against a pin and win army. Absolutely.
Different strokes, different folks. I would prefer a higher damage output.
Yeah, I'd want a little more.
Like Fulminators instead of Celestant Prime would probably make me feel pretty good.
Yep. Oh yeah, absolutely. But I'm not a big fan of the Prime, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd run the Skybolt blows here either. I don't know. There's a lot I would probably change. I wouldn't run this list in particular, but it did a great job. It was a 5-0. And its last win is actually against our next list.
So let's just jump into that one.
Yeah, let's go right through.
So this is pretty much the archetype that we're calling Chroncast. I'm not going to claim that we've invented this idea or anything, but that's just the name we're going to give to it, just so that it facilitates conversation. But basically, it's Krondys casting Purple Sun and his spell to give a unit -2 to saves, and then blowing that unit up with a mix of shooting and very powerful melee. And the best part is you can translocate Krondys forwards. Not always for a 9-inch charge. Sometimes you just want to translocate him a couple inches forward so that you can get that turn 1 Purple Sun off, so that your shooting can drop into play and start taking them to task. And you can see he's got 5 Judicators with crossbows. Those guys are going to be shooting at Rend 2, Rend 4 on the special crossbow. Like a Rend 4. And then the Tempesters drop into play. They've got Rend 3 crossbows and the Lightning Breath, and then if they make the charge, they do a ton of damage. I would have definitely put the Tempesters into Bounty Hunters. I'm not sure what that pick is about there. That's a really weird one.
We were talking about this too.
Yeah. I would have probably swapped the Desolators for more Judicators with Boltstorms, and then both Chariots and Bounty Hunters probably, actually, before I put the Tempesters in.
Yeah, because
sure. It's a 4-block of Tempesters, that's pretty good. It's a lot of
Daniel and I were talking about this, and the issue, I think, that if you swap that out and you rack up like 3 units in Bounty Hunters, it takes him from a 3-drop to a 4-drop, which means he loses to all the 3 drops.
I would just swap out the Desolators for the Tempesters.
For the Tempesters?
And you would just
then why take the Desolators at all?
I don't know. I'd take more shooting or lives or something.
Right. That's where we start getting into this sort of like rock, paper, scissors argument about it. I think seeing Desolators in a list is awesome.
First time for everything.
He went 4-1, did a pretty good job there.
Yep. Beating Marathi Melee Snakes, which I'm sure is one of those lists we've been talking about. Not a fan of the Melee Snake variant, personally, but if people are running it, I guess it's something we got to consider.
Yeah. There was a lot of melee at ATC, which is kind of interesting. We're looking at that. There wasn't so much shooting focus.
Yeah, this one's Midwest Bash though, different event.
Yeah. I was just saying, like in general, like the last event we saw.
Is it like people are seeing the Bounty Hunters battalion and they're like, oh, I got to get the most damage out of that with Blood Sisters, and then like ignoring all the stuff that's good in that army? Not that Blood Sisters are bad, just like Witch Elves doing 2 damage a hit are going to be phenomenal.
Yep. I mean,
I don't know,
even like with our first list that we saw from Tom with Daughters, like he took the Bow Snakes anyway, even without Marathi. So
yeah,
that was kind of interesting.
So the second win here was against Sacrosanct Karazai. Is that exactly what it sounds like?
Yeah, it's a lot of Sacrosanct units in Karazai, but in Hall of Knights, so it's a little bit of the Saint Karazai going on, but not like a super like focused on Karazai.
I'm guessing it still has Gardas. I'm guessing it has typical stuff you'd expect to see, probably Sequitors, maybe Evocators even?
Actually not the Evocators.
So just Sequitors then?
Yeah, Sequitors. Okay, it did have Stormshire's Curse-Breakers in there.
Okay.
Some Praetors and Quicksilver Swords. With Averon Stormsire. Oh, actually, yeah, he's with the Curse-Breakers, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sure is a pick. That's like the one Storm host. It is a downside to bring them because they don't get the 5 aboard. But I guess you just don't fight near them. I guess any like reinforced Sequitors or anything.
1 unit of reinforced and then 2 men.
Okay. Yeah. So you put in power on them. I guess that's what he's trying to go for.
Yep, he did run the Lord Arcanum with the Quicksilver Swords, so letting it go a little farther.
Yeah, nice. There's some combos in there. Not the best, but it seems like a fun list.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the next one was another Stormcast list. This one, 7 dragons and raptors, so oops all dragons.
Tempest Lords on dragons just isn't...
I like it.
Really?
Yeah, I run a bunch of Tempest Lord dragons list. Longest Strike is I have it as a Tempest Lord list because dragons really like playing with prosecutors, and both of those units are very good together. When they reroll 1 dice in the charge, prosecutors are just really good in general this season.
Well, what I was going to mention is like, but he didn't have like prosecutors, so it's really just like a reroll on top of rerolls.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't run 7 dragons in that list. I'd maybe run 4. 7's a lot.
Which I'm not running even in my oops list anymore.
Is it Draconis and then 3x2?
And then 3 units of yeah.
Okay.
With some raptors. So it's kind of like a list from last season, if you will.
How many I just closed the window out. How many armies were at Midwest Bash?
Midwest Bash was, I believe, 32. Yeah, it was like a
32. There is a ridiculous number of Stormcast lists in that event. A ridiculous number of them. It's like 45% Stormcast.
Whoa.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And
For
then
sure.
and then Gargants was the next matchup, and that is you pick a unit, you shoot it down with Croncast. Works perfectly. It's exactly what this list wants to fight.
It does its job. I mean,
Yep.
Croniskin's still pretty fighty. He gets in there.
Oh yeah. And then another Stormcast list. You called it
Just the
Hero
one
Hammer
we
Protectors.
talked about.
Yeah, right.
That was the last.
It was the one. Yeah.
Okay. Solid. Yeah, I can see. If I had to guess, this one probably would have beaten the other one. I guess the armor shred isn't enough to get through protectors with +3.
Mm-hmm.
So if those protectors get in with buffs up, that's a big problem for Tempesters.
Yeah.
And Krondys. Unleash that hatred on Krondys is going to hurt.
I don't know. If I had to guess, I think he might have tried to focus the protectors, and I would go the other approach and just kill the rest of the
Kill
army.
everything. Kill everything else, yep. That's what I would have
Just
done.
Leave the protectors alone. They're going to move 4 inches, and then you're going to be like, okay, cool.
Sick. I love this archetype. I want to see more of it. I like the 4 Tempester block. I think that is... It's so expensive. Krondys is 600, and then you have Purple Sun, and then probably Cogs, and probably other spells, and then 440 on Tempesters. It's like, man, you still need 2 more battle line slots. It starts to add up.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if it's like the list that I'm running with 4 dragons and 4 Tempesters, it comes out to roughly the same points.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's take a look at our first and only Ossiarch Bone Reapers list.
It's a 5-0.
Yeah, it is.
And that's pretty awesome. Just looking at this list, it's pretty crazy to see how many units are in here, and then look at it's still 1965.
Yep. It's got 3 spells, Archon the Black, and it's still 1965 with this many units. It's
57 models with 111 wounds. Again, leaning into the most value that you can get: expert conquerors, bounty hunters, command entourage. Like, you're getting as much value as you can. I'm not the most experienced with OBR, but he's got all the staples, right? He's got his reinforced Mortek Guard. He's got Archon the Black, the Leech Cavalos as a general, a Soul Mason, a Bone Shaper. I mean, it's a solid list accompanied by a bunch of endless spells that help out. Cogs definitely really good for all those spells that are going off.
Yeah, so you've got there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 casts. I've played against a list almost identical to this several times. And what Cogs does is just make sure that your multicast wizards never miscast and stop casting, right? And then just maxing out the highest spell values to reduce the chance that critical spells will get unbound. And what that normally equates to when you're playing against an army with only 1 or 2 unbinds is you effectively get all the buffs you want until 1 critical spell comes off, and that's the one your opponent tries to dispel, right? Archon makes it so that all of the endless spells and all the casts are at greater range.
That's right.
It's got a lot of tools. I like the Necropolis Stalkers hit like a truck in Bounty Hunters.
Are very good.
They absolutely cut stuff to pieces. And the Death Riders can do the same because they've got a bunch of attacks. Because the horses have...
Yeah. Reinforced it.
I would probably...
The flowers thing.
I would have probably done 2 units of 5. But 10 will work.
Yeah, it works out.
Yeah. It's good.
I am not familiar enough with the Bone Reapers right now to tell you. I was really hoping Mergonk was here because he plays that army. He knows them like the back of his hand.
Yeah.
But I mean, it really is all about the buffs, and I mean, you have to play pretty strategically. You've got your blocks of 20 Mortek Guard that you really need to buff up and make sure that they do their job. I mean, you're relying on those Stalkers to do a lot of work for just the 1 unit and the Death Riders, so it's quite a balance to have to play this list, and big props to Michael for bringing it to a 5-0. That's really good.
Yeah. 4 units and 4 heroes does not give you a lot of board control.
Yep. You have to be very precise.
Yeah, I would have gone 2x5 Death Riders. I don't know what I'm talking about, though. I'm really interested in these matchups here because this is Midwest Makeup, which is a different event than the previous one, which was Midwest Bash. Sounds right.
Yeah.
So
Midwest Bash.
looking at the matchups here, Beasts of Chaos with Dragon Ogre Zangors, so like a mix of those two units. Yeah,
Yep.
I can see them just bouncing off this Petrifex Elite list, right? And then you've got Seraphon. Quaddle's Claw is. See, I would call it the worst Seraphon subfaction, but I'm not sure about that after the changes to Coalesce. I think Quaddle's Claw is looking better because if you're going Saurus heavy, you might as well take advantage of that. So I'm not sure how good that is, but I mean, lost to Bone Reapers, so how good can it be?
I mean, he went for a lot of source with it for sure, like the Carnosaur, all the Skink Priests, or every Skink, I guess, hero model, some Min Saurus Knights and Guard with a reinforced Saurus Knights block, a reinforced Saurus Warriors block, and then Chameleon Skinks as a Min unit.
I don't want to be too harsh on Quaddle's Claw. Like even last season, it was doing fine. It was just like the third string choice behind Dracothian Stale and Thunder Lizard. So like, there's nothing wrong with it, and I'm just kind of just harping on it because I'm a Seraphon player too. So yeah. Fire Slayers versus how many Maggotkin were in this list? 2, 3, 4?
So I think it was only 3. Let me open it up because it wasn't full Magmadroth spam, which is why I didn't want to put oops, all Magmadroths. Austin, he had 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it was 3.
Okay. Did he still have did he have a blob of Hearthguard?
So he had a double reinforced Hearthguard Berserker blob. He had a Rune Master, Rune Smiter, Rune Sun, double Rune Sun, and the Rune Father on Magmadroth, along with double Rune Suns on Magmadroth.
Double Rune Sun on foot. Wow, that's weird.
Yeah, double Rune Sun.
Really weird.
Trying to keep everything buffed up, I guess. That's still
maybe.
The
problem with running a double reinforced Berserker blob is that you get hit by those Stalkers and those Berserkers are gone. Turning them into veterans is a downside for defensive units that are meant to like survive multiple rounds and take hits and then get revived with rally. So every hit turns into one dead model instead of half a dead model. It's brutal. Bloodthirster spam. This is not the first time we've seen Bloodthirster spam on these slides today. Am I missing something? Is it good now?
So, I mean, Khorne got a really good buff, I think. I think it's just the fact that Khorne is good. This one's running 3 Bloodthirsters, 2 of the Insensate Rage, 2 of Unfettered Fury, so 2 really, booming guys. The 2 Insensate Rage actually had the artifacts, and then the Unfettered Fury was the general with Mage Eater.
So was it 4 Bloodthirsters?
Scarbrand. He had Scarbrand, so he had 4.
4, yeah, okay.
Yep, he had Scarbrand, of course.
They're cheap enough. You can run 4, yeah.
Yeah. A Bloodsecrator, and of course the Khorne Demon Prince. It's just you have to have it. It really it's ironic that the Khorne Demon Prince is in Khorne, but and then 2 min units of Bloodletters, a unit of Fleshhounds, and a unit of Gores just to fill out screens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Gores being hella cheap.
I think that the change to Khorne, because their blood tithe abilities are excellent. They are excellent. So I think just that change is going to really improve their win rate.
They can give themselves exploding 6s for the rest of the game, which is kind of neat. Like there's a lot of neat things.
Hero phase moving, charging, getting into combat. There's more mobility, more damage. It's more spell negation.
More Bloodthirsters.
More.
I'm really curious to see where Khorne goes from here because I think people are bringing out their old Khorne armies from 2nd edition, like right after the 2nd edition book drop. You see these Bloodthirster spam lists. I think people are bringing those out because they're excited to play Khorne with the new Blood Tithe, and we'll see. People will see. Oh, hold on, Blood Tithe is really really good. Maybe not Bloodthirster spam, but some kind of Khorne list actually could be good. Now, I don't know if that's going to be true when they change the War Scroll and the Demon Prince because we've already seen that's happening. The Khorne aura is going, not the aura, the pulse. I want to be very clear that it is a pulse that is not an aura. Everybody's playing it wrong. The pulse effect will go away, and then I don't know what Khorne does until they get a new book. But it'll be interesting to watch it for sure. And then the last matchup is Big Stabba spam, which is a thing people are doing.
Okay, so it actually took a 5-0 win at one of the biggest tournaments of the year at the Texas Masters this weekend, but I just couldn't include it because it was with last GHB. But that kind of makes it more interesting in my mind.
It gets worse in the new season, if I had to guess. Like, I get the merit of it is that it's a ton of wounds and lots of Rend 2 attacks and lots of disposable units, and like the way combat typically goes is we'll have like hundreds of points fight other hundreds of points, and when it will take over the space from that other one. So when you've got like these 80-point disposable units, like, oh no, you killed my 80 points. Do that 7 more times, please. You know, like
There's 14.
Or 13 more times.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So it just kind of feels like a different game when you're playing against it. So I get the merit of it, but I'm not sure in this GHB it's gonna be good because only 3 units can go in bounty hunters, and they're not veterans, so they don't have proving grounds control, and they can't really go all in on the bounty hunters to take advantage of it. So that's a rough place to be for that kind of archetype.
Yeah. Oh
and
man.
Definitely can't go battle regiment.
Yeah.
So I don't know where they fit in the paradigm.
It's interesting. And that was Tom Guan, our first list of the Daughters of Khaine, who took it this weekend at the Texas Masters and won. So he's an interesting player. He'll play a lot of really cool things.
No, I don't want to be too negative on Big Stab of Spam. It just it doesn't seem like the best choice in this season. That's all.
Sir?
I'd love to be proven wrong because I love dumb meme lists like that. Like,
like love cool stuff.
It's still a hyper efficient unit at 80 points.
It's
like
not,
at the end of the day, it's good.
It's
a good unit.
It's the kind of unit that when you spam it, your opponent still has fun. Whereas if you're playing against, an opponent spamming Puscoil Blightlords or an opponent spamming nothing but Stormdrakes, it's not fun to play against. But like mass Stabas is hilarious to play against. It's good time for both players.
Yeah.
It's too funny, yeah. Whew.
Another Scarlet Doom list, and
what do you know?
It's not that different from the first one. It does have, instead of 30 and 20, it's got a 20-20-10 for Bladegeist Revenants. It's got the Bounty Hunters for the Bladegeist to give them even more damage output, whereas the previous one had everything in Expert Conquerors. And this one brings a squad of 20 Chain Rasp in addition to all that. So the previous one we talked about inefficiencies that it had. This one kind of is less inefficient. It cut out the All Rack, it cut out the Second Spirit Torment, and it brought in 20 Chain Rasp and Reikenor.
Yeah. I will admit I forgot the Purple Sun in this list, but that's kind of almost assumed at this point with Nighthaunt.
Yeah, that's part of their allegiance, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much an allegiance ability,
Well, and on that topic, one of the things that we were talking, Daniel and I were talking about before the show, neither one of these lists are running the auto cast Can't Be Unbound book.
The Midnight Tome, yeah.
The Midnight Tome, right?
That's a mistake.
Not running it is a
mistake?
mistake?
It's so good.
Yeah,
so good.
I agree. Reikenor makes up for that with the ability to just get +3 to cast, but still, why not? It's hard to dispel to make it automatic, Can't Be Unbound when you need it.
It's a lot of value in that, yep.
Yeah.
We were joking, it's Allegiance ability, but it is really empowering Nighthaunt a ton. Like, when that Purple Sun is on the field, it is not the same army. It's just not.
Maybe if you had a Purple Sun guaranteed, you wouldn't have lost Reapers of Vengeance, because you just can't deal with that unbind.
I mean, last tournament I went to, my buddy Carl, he was playing Legion, but he had his Bloodthirster take out, like, so much of the freaking army just rolling the 6s, man. Maybe he got boomed out. That might have been what it is.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got 2 of the Boom Thirsters. I don't think Scarlet Brand has the same effect, right? It's just
just a single target.
He could have just gotten boomed out, to be honest. So that's a possibility, because you keep everything close. Like, Nighthaunt has to stay more blobbed.
Yeah,
so that 8-inch, taking those mortal wounds, that could have been a big part of the loss there.
Yeah, Nighthaunt is so prevalent right now, and they have this particular way of fighting that it's making me think about constructing some kind of mortal wound bomb Stormcast list, because I think Stormcast do it like top 3 in the game to do like pinpoint just massive amounts of mortal wounds in an area, especially from range and reliably. Like, a lot of armies have to like roll 2-ups, and Stormcast can just do it guaranteed. So that could actually be a viable archetype. So
could be a strategy, yeah.
Could be. But yeah, so looking at this list, it skips the Midnight Tome in exchange for an Arcane Tome, and it took Shade Mist. So what I would prefer, maybe even just a teleport spell in the Guardian, just so we can like no, because then you need a spell enhancement to go along with that. Like, what is that? What is that second spell he's casting? Just the revive and shade mist every turn, and the purple sun, I guess. But like Reichnor is going to be casting purple sun.
Is he 2-cast for Seal?
No, he's just 1.
Okay.
I didn't
You're
think
not really
he was
getting
a
Seal
2-cast.
that much.
So this is heavy on the damage, right? Like Light Shard gives all your Blade Guys +1 attack once per game. The Blade Guys are doing a ton of mortal wounds on the charge with Scarlet Doom, and then they're also in Bounty Hunter, so they're going to be cutting through hordes. And that damage is really useful, but you know what it's not useful against? Bloodthirster spam. It's really not useful against monsters. Getting bonus like Bounty Hunter doesn't matter against them, and this is exactly the kind of it's kind of indicative of the stages that we talked about, which is like, well, what's the counter to bounty hunters and expert conquerors? Well, it's monsters, and then you kind of have to hit a balance because you can't just go all in on one of those things. So this one went like all in on, I don't know, all in is the right term, but it went heavy on the bounty hunter battalion with these Blade Ghost Revenants, and I think it would have benefited more if it had one in Revenants, one of the Revenants in bounty hunter, and one in expert conquerors. Like swap the 10 and 20 around, and I think this would have done better.
Is this, Daniel, is this the list that we couldn't tell what was in what?
This is also true. We actually couldn't, the format of the list wasn't great when it was submitted, so we had to make a couple assumptions.
We were guessing.
Okay,
yeah,
then
we were guessing.
I'll retract that statement since I don't know enough.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
It was tough.
That's how it goes sometimes, right? People submit lists in wonky ways. People get in. Sometimes people submit handwritten lists. It happens.
Yeah.
It won against Blister Skin, which is not surprising because Flesh Eaters don't do enough damage to kill Nighthaunt.
Nope.
And it won against Fire Slayers. This is an enhancement spam list, so it had like a bunch of heroes. I'm guessing it had like
it was
Grimrats?
It was all was it magma drops? Just like a ton of magma drops?
A couple magma drops, but it was because it's Greyford, right? So
it
allows for more enhancements. So it didn't have too many magma drops.
Because the
heavy in the heroes.
The enhancements have to go on unmounted heroes.
The only units it had were a min unit of Berserkers, a min unit of Berserkers, a min unit of min unit, 2 min unit Hearthguard, and 2 Volkite.
And then all heroes.
2 Rune Fathers on Magmadroth, or a Rune Smiter and a Rune Father Magmadroth, a Rune Sun, a Rune Smiter, a Battlesmith, and a Rune Father. Wow. Just so many heroes.
I thought I understood Fire Slayers, and I just don't see what these Rune Sons and Rune Fathers on foot are doing. Is it just to keep the aura up on the Hearthguard Berserkers? Like,
that's what I would think, is keeping the buffs going. And just, man.
Why multiple? Just bring like 1 for that purpose. That's enough, right? Surely that's enough. Like, I just don't get it.
You've
it
got
feels weird.
2 heroes per unit, so you've got double. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Really weird.
It's built-in redundancy. I don't know, man.
So
like
that's
from
redundancy.
From a purely efficiency competitive standpoint, I have no idea why you would ever do that. It also could be he did it because he likes his mohawk orange-haired dwarves.
Maybe, yeah. So how I see this matchup going is that the Magmadroths get charged to death, and then the Blade Guys Revenants chop up the Hearthguard with their Bounty Hunter bonus.
Yep.
And the fight first on 5 models isn't enough to make a difference. You need a block of 10 or 15 to make that relevant.
Oh, never mind. Those aren't min units. Those are 10 blocks.
Okay. Well, even then, are they pole axes or the broad axes?
They are. Get that back up. Mix that up here. Which one was it?
Probably one of each.
You've got. Yes, it actually is one of each. Yep.
Yeah, so charge into the pole axes, discorporate against that, and then just leave the broad axes for another turn. Their bonus rend never matters, but they can do a lot of damage if they're in bounty hunters against you. So just tie down that unit with like Chain Rasp or something, put them in the way, charge the Magmadroths to death, and then fight the pole axes to death because you're going to kill them even through the fight first.
Yep.
Yeah, all he did was put the Berserkers, the 2 Hearthguard, and the Volkite in bounty hunters, and then he had 2 command entourages for Magnificent.
Sure. Why not? Beasts of Chaos have a lot of rend, but low damage, and you know who doesn't care about rend? Nighthaunt. So
the ghosts.
That's a really rough matchup for Beasts.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this isn't even like a really elite Nighthaunt army. It has a lot of units. It can cover a lot of space. It can leave units around. It's not hyper focused like a lot of other Nighthaunt lists, which go like some Nighthaunt lists go like crazy MSU and like everything's in 10 squads, and I think that's a mistake. And others go like two
agreed.
blocks of 30, and I think that's a mistake as well. I think you want like 30, 10, 10 is probably what you want with Nighthaunt.
So yeah, I've had a lot of discussion with Alexander Gonzalez about it, and I think the 20, 20, 10, 10 is a good sweet spot. 30 seems a little too much.
30 is really good into some things.
It's
like
hard to
Stormcast are not going to kill 30 in one turn, which is an accomplishment in and of itself.
Yeah.
Like with a 5-up ward, 4-up ethereal, you need to deal 90 wounds to that unit.
Yeah.
Like, it's so stupid. Nothing does 90 wounds in this game. Not even fulminators can do that on their own. So it's tough.
Well, but I mean, the 20 is what 60 wounds. That's still a lot, and you've got multiple units of them. But
the thing is, there's ways to shut it down. Like Geminids can stop Discorporate in shooting. Roar can stop Discorporate in combat. So there's like that going from 20 to 30 isn't like it makes it much harder than and then you want the unit to survive so you can start reviving with Spirit Torment as well. So there's reasons to run a 30. I would consider.
I'm not saying that there's not. I just don't think that 30 is inherently going to be better than two units of 20.
I really like Scarlet Doom because your units of 10 in Hunters can charge, do a bunch of mortal wounds, and then still deal good Hunter damage. I would probably run the 30 block in Conquerors and then run like 3x10 in Hunters. Something like that.
Because at that point you don't need the damage,
Probably. Well, I'm really loving to see where Nighthaunt transition from this. It's going to be really interesting to watch them. They might be the strongest army in the game right now.
They're real good. They're real good. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Ironjawz don't have enough. Their rend doesn't mean anything, so Nighthaunt just laugh at Ironjawz. So
yeah,
pretty much how those matchups go. And the last one, so I haven't seen this one yet, so run me through it because I see Lord Croak and Coalesced, and I'm liking it already.
All right, so yeah, you've got Thunder Lizards, so kind of what we had before, but taking out the skinks, adding in some Source Guard and Source Guard were there before, but Source Knights. Got Lord Croak, Skink Star Priest with the Fuse with Conflagration, Binding and Endless Will, interesting. Enter the Gods.
Yeah.
Oh, what was it?
Maybe it's because you kill the wizard and then you take control of their spell.
Yeah. They're more around for sure. Enter the Gods though, I think you have to take Prime War Beast, but it's still really good.
It's the only mount trait, yeah.
Yeah, the only mount trait you can take.
Or sorry, it's the only command trait that you can take, and well, I guess you could have made another monster your general or something, but Prime War Beast is great, and then Beastmaster's great with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, really good with it. I'm actually not familiar with Incandescent Retresses.
That's the one where if you die on a 4+, you come back. I think it's a 4+. Okay. See, that's an interesting one because I probably would have gone Arcane Tome instead. Because that not only does that it gives you a spell and all that, but then your Slans can Vassal cast through it. But I gotta double check if Croak can Vassal cast. I don't know if he can. The new War Scrolls, but I haven't actually played him in like a year. I've just been using regular Slans.
Gotcha. See if good old Artorius Rex is in the chat. Maybe he can tell me. An avid Seraphon player. Saurus stonks.
So 2 Vastillodons and Thunder Lizards using Guard Knights. See, it's interesting he went for Battle Regiment Command Entourage instead of going for Bounty Hunters in this setup. Because those Knights could have gone Bounty Hunters.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing.
+1 damage on Knights is not bad.
You're not really...
especially given the... Like, what, 5 attacks apiece or something like that? For 110 points?
The Source Knights are honestly not bad. I've always been hot on them. I think they're a great battle line unit. They've been my preferred. Like if you're just running MSU screens, Source Knights all the way.
Source Knights are awesome.
I don't use MSU skinks.
Yeah, Source Knights are great. One of the ugliest models in the game, but an excellent unit.
Yeah,
it hurts.
Artorius, which is local buddy Branden, so that you can vassal cast. With,
Sweet. Okay. Yeah, that's sick. So yeah, I would have definitely gone Arcane Tome on the engine. Maybe he's worried about it getting sniped, but like if I'm looking at what I'm gonna kill in this list, it's like Lord Croak every single time because he's not coalesced. So it's like, yep, just point those long straight crossbows right there.
Yeah.
Just kill him through the guard. Like it's so easy now.
Yeah.
So yeah, so this is a Croak list, right? It's got the Ashleth Fair to give it bonus range. It's got multiple skink, well, not multiple. It's got the one skink star priest to vassal cast through, but it's got the spell portal, so it doesn't need the vassal cast. Yeah, rerolling spells on Croak is gross. Yep, really gross. One of the only things that counters Croak is him miscasting, so that's just not going to happen now. And yeah, it's a Croak list. It's gonna play against some armies that ignore spells, and then it's gonna lose against them, and then it's gonna play against armies that don't ignore spells, and it's gonna do great. And let's take a look at the matchups here. So hey, Ideneth, they don't ignore spells, right? They're actually quite weak to spells. Yeah. So that's a pretty easy matchup for that kind of list. Daughters of Khaine, you know what Morathi doesn't have anymore? A bonus to Unbinding.
Bonus to Unbind.
Are those bow snakes or melee snakes?
That was I believe he had I'm pretty sure he had a mix because I think I would have put it if it was just melee, but he had a purple sun, which is interesting. So we got 10 Bloodstalkers, 10 Blood Sisters with 10 Witch Elves as the units.
Okay.
Yes. Of course, and purple.
So you shoot those bow snakes with the Bastillodons, and then the game is yours from there.
Problem solved.
Yep.
Stormcast. Tell me about the Stormcast list. How many Star Drakes? Because the Star Drakes would do really, really well into this army.
It was just the one Star Drake, but I
thought it said Storm Drake. My bad. Yeah.
Star Drake. I thought Phoenix, Fulminators.
I thought it said Storm Drake. Yeah, that's different. Star Drakes would lose hard.
Yeah, it was a Star Drake with an Incanter on the side, Arcane Tome. He did go for the Arcane Tome Scintillating Trail, so
I do like that.
No Master of Magic, you went Master of Celestial Menagerie. Come on, you were almost there.
So close.
And then the spell was Starfall. I probably would have
gone. Oh, okay, way off. Not even close.
Yeah. But 90 Cantrip Celestial Blades with a min unit of Fulminators, min unit of Boltstorm Crossbows, another min unit of Fulminators to round out the battle line, so very lean. No real screens.
You know what's really good against MSU armies?
Lord Croak dealing
with
mortal wounds.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Daughters of Khaine, Drachy Ganeth. Finally seeing people play Drachy Ganeth. It's good. Yes. It's really good, but it loses to Croak. Because he just murders all the witches.
It was MSU a double cauldron list.
Okay, that's interesting.
And it had 2 reinforced units of Sisters of Slaughter, I believe. Let me open it up to be 100% sure.
Whoa. Okay, that sounds like they should be playing Kraith, not Drachy Ganeth.
Right? So it was only a 120 Witch Elves, 20 Sisters, with double Cauldron, Hagg Queen, of course, 1 High Gladiatrix, only 1. The Bloodrack Viper, not sure was that great in there. Heart of Fury, and then Doomfire Warlocks with 10 more Blood Sisters. That was the other part of the Sisters mix.
Okay.
So reinforced Blood Sisters on that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Reinforced Blood
So
Sisters.
no Morathi means you just die to spells.
Unfortunate.
Not that Morathi counter spells, but it's like a lot of your army is taking damage from Croak every turn, which is brutal. Yeah. No good unbinding.
Wait, the Hagg Queen is a wizard natively?
No.
I didn't think so. How is he doing the Bloodrack Viper?
Does he have a Medusa or a Shrine or a Tome?
High Gladiatrix and 2 Hagg Queens, neither of them with Arcane Tome.
Guess he's not. I guess he's not.
Wait a minute. Okay. Well, that is what it is.
Points.
What was his? Hang on.
Maybe it wasn't.
What other heroes yet?
This would have been at the Ragnarok The World Goes Dark, the edgiest tournament name I've ever heard. Russell Taylor taking first in 5-0.
Okay, let me look.
Should have been the last on the links that I sent out.
I got it.
Yeah.
That's not what I wanted. I wanted
there's no wizard.
Drachy Ganeth.
For...
Hagg Queen on Cauldron. Gladiatrix, Hagg Queen on Cauldron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There just wasn't anything for the Bloodwrack Viper to be cast off of. Or
So
actually, just
why-
couldn't be in the list as well. Oh.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Weird.
You talk about the Beast of Chaos list. It was pretty much like a Zangor Dragon Ogre like we've seen before, but this one had an Incarnate.
Okay, that's cool. Give some durability to
Fire
an army that-
Warlocks are wizards. Doomfire Warlocks are wizards.
Oh, wait, but can they cast other things?
They I'm pretty sure they can't learn any spells. No, they can. They can take Flaming
Yeah, they
Weapon
can
and
cast
stuff.
Other things, yeah. I think.
So I guess it's the Doomfire Warlocks casting the Viper.
Huh.
It would have to be. It's
'Cause
the
they're not,
only
like-
wizard in the unit.
They're
in
not
the
like
army.
Evocats. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the Stormcast wizard units are the only ones in the game that work.
That
That way.
can't cast other things. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Because we're Yep, we don't get those
So
things.
so they can't learn spells from the lore because they're not a hero wizard, but they
Mhm.
can cast other spells if they learn them from another lore. Like the universal one doesn't require being a hero; it just requires being a wizard. So they can
Mhm.
learn that. I believe that's how that interaction works. But yeah, Doomfire Warlocks do get to add 1 to casting rules if they have 5 or more models, so that's a thing. But no, like, okay, I'm not even that scared of the Bloodwrack Viper. Like if I played against that, I wouldn't even kill the Doomfire Warlocks just to try to deny it or anything. I would still deal with other things. So maybe it'll get off the Viper.
Yeah, I mean, you could get it out.
The Viper's okay,
Yeah,
right?
it does
Like
okay.
it's not
Like,
great.
Yeah, it's not amazing.
It is ridiculously funny to watch to ignore the Viper and watch it run across the table and just smash everything to rubble. Thank you, sweetie.
I really like that it's the one endless spell that can't be eaten by the Incarnate.
Yeah.
Yep. It is.
Yep.
As I found out the other day.
It is also the Viper is also deadly to little 5-wound support heroes.
That's true.
Potentially, yeah.
Actually, you can roll equal to. I'm pretty sure.
It is, yeah.
So, 6
So,
wound heroes,
like-
so it can eat
so,
like
like,
a Relictor.
Your battle mage is in the back corner
Your battle
because
mage.
he's cast his spell and the
He's
Relictor teleported him, and the Viper comes along and rolls 3 dice, and on a 5-up he's dead.
All right, I think there's a lot of copium going on.
Well, you're not going to teleport the Battle Mage because he's not a Stormcast unit. So you can't.
No.
That's
Like I'm
okay,
saying,
that's
if
true,
you've buffed Fulminators or Storm
Oh,
Drakes and
sure.
teleported them forward, right?
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's
There's a
not.
lot of
it's all right.
copium.
It's not great. it's something. Yeah, there's so many other endless spells I'd rather take for those points. But I guess then the Doomfire Warlocks are a target that you have to deal with, and everybody would just instantly deal with them because they're not tough. 10 wounds on a 5, like who cares? They're just gonna die. So.
Yep.
Okay, so that's the last list in our live stream today. What are our first impressions of the meta? I kind of talked about the stages of where we think things are going, and I think we're kind of seeing all of it right now. It's kind of all over the place, and yeah, and we're gonna see what rises to the top. Like we've seen battle regiments, we've seen some lists that go heavy on enhancements for some reason. We've seen lists that go, both conquerors and hunters. We've seen lists that go battle regiment and then one of the two, either hunters or conquerors. And I think probably what's going to end up happening is that healthy mix is going to continue, but the units that we're going to see that are involved in that are going to shift. So I personally think Nurgle's not going to run just pure Blight Lords. I don't think that's going to be a viable strategy. But if it is, it's because of Battle Regiment and playing the tactical game rather than just, I'm going to pin you immediately. There's more to it, like what Branden was talking about in our chat.
Yeah.
I think it's, obviously I've only had the time to really deep dive into Stormcast with it. I think I'm going to do Seraphon next probably. But for Stormcast, this season looks fantastic. I love Conquerors, I love Hunters, and I love even after the nerfs, I'm feeling really good about just the amount of choices that we have in the army now. It feels really good to build lists.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really liking how this season is ending up. Credit due where it's due. James Workshop has been on the ball this year for, the most part. I mean, even getting hit with nerfs, I don't even feel bad. Like I do because, feeling bad. But at the same time, like it's opened up a lot of lists. That Croncast list, super cool. Seeing it, go 4-1 and get second place at that GT is awesome to see. I love seeing that. Mergonk, amazing performance at ATC. With Annihilators, like we've got so many options. I'm so excited for Stormcast that we're not just that one trick. We don't just do one thing. Like seeing like Nurgle flies and feeling like that's the only thing you can do is not the
Oh
same
yeah,
as what's happening in Stormcast.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
being a mono build army is the worst feeling. That's I would rather be like a C tier army that can play like 10 different lists as opposed to being like an S tier army that has one viable list. That sounds so boring to play.
Yeah.
I'm glad Doc is finally expanding out of that. Even if we're still seeing the Marathi bow snakes, it's awesome to see, double cauldron, Drake Ganeth, stuff
Yeah.
like that popping up. I'm sure we'll see more of it as people experiment, like people get out of their comfort zone. They're gonna tend towards the things that they're used to. They probably don't even have that many witch elves, So
Yeah.
there's a lot of little things like that that I think are gonna be really cool to see. Sylvaneth are really neat upcoming. Can't wait to do the video on that to really get in there and see how the mechanics work. Because they're really cool. I played my first game against them yesterday, just to kind of figure, how the matchup works. And dang, that gave me a run for my money. Real close.
Yeah, they seemed, when the book came out, it was like Ironjawz. They seemed overpowered. Like, oh wow, look at all this crazy stuff. Look at all these stats, and then you like actually get into list building and like the actual impact of these units. You're like, it's just fine. Like it's just fine.
Priced well.
Yeah. If they were any cheaper, they'd be a problem.
It would be really hard. Yeah.
Especially units like those little flying archers that they have now. If those things were any cheaper, this would be a miserable game to play until they nerf them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be tough. I'm kind of glad we're not seeing them a lot right now. So.
Yeah, Dan, you didn't play second edition, but Jack, did you play when Zangor's spam was a thing on the discs? Skyfires?
Not competitively, no.
It was a nightmare. It was like every time they rolled a hit roll of 6, they did D3 mortal wounds, and they would just spam them as many as you could fit in a list because you would roll enough 6s that you'd kill your opponent.
Yep.
It was just no fun to play against on a unit that had like, oh god, I think it was also like 14-inch movement on a flying unit and like 24-inch range too, so there was just no getting away from it. It was so stupid, and like the Gossamed archers are kind of the same thing, where if you bring enough of them and then you just swarm the enemy with D3 mortal wounds on hit rolls of 6, and you just win the game. So Sylvaneth team pointed really well. Got a lot of thoughts, but I think I'll save it for the review.
Yeah, of course.
There's a lot to talk about with them. And go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna close out the thought. Like I haven't played in an event yet under the new GHB. I'm going to my first one the next 2 weeks.
Nice.
So not my first event this year, obviously, just the first one with the new GHB. I think it's a little too early to tell how it's gonna level out. What I would really like to see is undefeated event results becoming really uncommon, where this rock, paper, scissors thing means that people are not going to be able to build lists versatile enough to do everything. And so you have to go in a direction, and then there's a list that will beat you. And so that we start seeing a lot of like 4-1 results where the tournament is determined by total victory point, differential, whatever, right?
Mathematically, it gets a little tough to get just a 4-1 to not be at the end. But even then, I am still liking, and what I'm seeing so far is that combination of everything where you do have more rock, paper, scissors going on is putting more emphasis on player skill.
Yeah,
than
agreed.
Just you build the list.
On the list tech.
Yep.
Yeah.
Your net list is just better than the other net list.
Well, I mean, the
like
last event I went to, Matt Beasley went 5-0 with Hedonites.
Yeah, that
you know what I mean?
List we talked
and this
about
was the incarnate list, and that is before they got their point reductions, right? Mm-hmm. So like, I really dig that we're seeing the competition, the bandwidth for the competition get narrower and narrower, mm-hmm. where instead of it being like, here's 3 armies that are like crushing everybody, and here's 6 armies that are just always losing, and then the guys in the middle are kind of fighting it out. Now I feel like that margin's getting narrower and narrower.
I think it's cool to say, like we were talking about earlier, like what would we even consider S tier right now? And it's like you kind of lean into saying Nighthaunt, but you almost don't, because I mean, even we've seen here, not a lot of the Nighthaunt finishes were. I don't think we had a Nighthaunt 5-0 finish actually. And none of the Nighthaunt lists went 4-0 either.
Yeah, let's close out the stream by talking about where we think armies are ranked right now. Just initial impressions. So hold on, let me just get like a list of armies here. We can go through them sequentially. Let's just do the for the sake of simplicity, just the 3rd edition battle tomes, because the other stuff is too wonky. Maybe like we put armies that aren't going to get books anytime soon, like Seraphon. We can talk about them.
Soul Blight's probably not going to get a book for a while.
Probably not, yeah. But okay, so let's go through them like one at a time. Cities of Sigmar. What do we think of them? So I'm going to say like Hallowheart and Tempest Eye are probably the front runners. And if I had to rank them on like using our scale of like S through F, right? If people are familiar with that, I'd probably put cities in like a B. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, B plus B.
3.0 books.
Yeah, they don't. So like for reference, I would put like Idaneth, Stormcast, Nighthaunt, Nurgle at A. Just off the top of my head, those 4 armies, I put them in A, I think.
Where's Doc gonna fall?
Probably A as well. Yeah.
A, right? So like I think what we're seeing is that almost all of the 3rd edition books are falling solidly in A.
Well, not all of them.
With the exception of like Fire Slayers.
No, I would consider Fire Slayers A. Probably on the lower end of it, but like they still seem really good. Maggotkin are solid. Yeah. Hearthguard fighting first gets around the veteran downsides. Oryx are cheap veteran that shoot, which is actually a niche that they have now. And then they have like just solid stats and defenses. I don't know if people are playing them necessarily correctly because they're not a simple army to play. There's lack of speed is a huge downside. You have to like really methodically plan ahead where you're going to go.
Right. Right.
Okay, sorry. So methodically, cities B, right?
Yeah.
Daughters A, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Top end of A even.
Fire Slayers bottom end of A, but I think still A. I don't think they're like I don't think they're on the same level as cities.
They're kind of circling the drain a little bit. It's tough.
Maybe we'll see. Idaneth are a solid A, I'd say.
Yes, they are.
Idaneth is solid.
Kharadron, if Purple Sun works the way the core rules suggest, which is like you don't control the spell, which means you can move it the turn you summon it because it's your turn, right? And you get to pick a spell. But then every turn after that, it's a wild spell, so your opponent can just move it away, and then it spends the rest of the game just doing this back and forth and doesn't accomplish anything. I say in that world, Kharadron are like a C. They feel like they don't have that much going on aside from that like Alpha Strike Purple Sun turn. I don't think they're up there. What do you guys think? Am I off the ball here?
I think I'd agree. Obviously, and going off of our tier listings, anything that we rank as C and above would be something competitive.
Yeah, right? For sure. Doesn't mean it's bad.
KO is competitive. Yeah, because our tier listing isn't just like if you're not A tier, then you're just not worth playing. I would put KO as C.
Okay, let me ask you this, because Paul, I absolutely feel the opposite.
Okay.
I think the rules say that KO controls it but can't move it. Because of the way the rule is written.
I don't disagree with that. The end result is that they move it on their turn because you pick wild spells. The player going first on that turn picks the first spell.
But regardless, right? Yeah. I don't want to argue the minutiae of the rules here because I think it works differently, but that's fine. If they control it, so the opponent can't move it, but once they drop it, they can't move it anymore the way that Warp Lightning Vortex works, how do you think they are with Purple Sun? If they can deploy it and keep it there.
Because the enemy can move it still in there.
Yeah, the opponent just moves it. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. If it works the other way, if it's like a static object, your opponents just move away from it. It's the same effect.
Move away from it, right?
Yeah, so it's. Yeah. I think it's pretty much the same. I don't think it makes a difference in terms of my ranking.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Kharadron really need a new book, for sure.
And they do.
And I'm really excited to see that army get a new book, because 3rd edition books have been great so far. And I didn't think I'd ever be saying that. I
really like that the 3rd edition books, a lot of them have a unique identity. Right? Like I just think that's really interesting.
Yeah. They nailed flavor more than anything else. Then they found niches for each army to go into. And they've removed like armies that kind of do everything. They've really cut away that everything part of it. Like Daughters of Khaine is such a glass cannon now that their best damage in the game, the best melee damage, is offset by the fact that they're a glass cannon army now.
Right.
Stormcast
Right.
do tremendous damage, but they are held back by mobility and model count. Those are
Yep.
serious disadvantages for that army.
And toolbox, honestly.
And what, sorry?
Yep.
Like toolbox, we don't have a lot of toolbox. Like
We don't have tricks. We're just
we
a
don't have
solid, straightforward army.
Does what it says on the box.
Mhm. Sylvaneth have tremendous mobility, fantastic enhancements, but their actual damage output is not the best.
Right.
They have to play, because of that, they have to play an attrition style. They have to play multiple rounds of combat. They have to utilize their strike and fade. They have to utilize their healing and their regen, the revivals. They have to utilize these tools that they have, which is great. That's what armies should do, is have cool things and then also have a playstyle that feeds into it. And the stats and the points, they all reflect it. So the 3rd edition books have been great so far, pretty much across the board. And so I'm excited for everyone that comes out now, which is weird.
Yeah.
I'm so used to like 2nd edition where it's like every book is like making the game worse and less fun. Every like 2 months, It's just, oh, what did they ruin this time?
Yeah, I was
Chase posted in the chat, and I think that he's dead on.
Fireslayers B+, Ironjawz A, other Oryx B, yeah. Daughters A, Stormcast A, Ideneth A, yep. Nighthaunt A, Sylvaneth A, Skaven A, Soulblight A.
It's gonna take some time to be like fully A as far as like tournament
results
go.
Agreed.
But it will be A, guys.
It will be A. Absolutely.
I'm seeing the combos. They're there. There is.
Yeah.
There are lists.
So
I think they might even have more list archetypes than we do, which is crazy.
Okay. Lumineth, too soon to tell. They're getting a new book soon, so
And they're getting a new book. So
no point talking about them. Seraphon, they got nerfed pretty substantially.
Yeah.
Like Coalesced, Slans just die now against other shooting armies, which is rough, and other magic armies because like they can unbind, but it's not going to stop guaranteed purple suns and whatnot. I'm still going to call Seraphon A, I think.
Yeah, I think they're still an A.
Yep.
And they did take a nerf, but I don't think the nerf is as significant as people think it is.
The Bounty Hunters is really good for them, and the updated and the spells are really good for them. Purple Sun is
agreed.
so good in Seraphon. It's crazy. They're a low rend army, so giving your whole army +1 rend, it makes like Razordons, Stegodons, Bastillodons, all these units that just weren't efficient enough. They can just crush through things now. It's crazy.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah, so going sequentially, Stormcast are A, Sylvaneth are A.
Yep.
Beasts of Chaos, hard to tell. Are they getting a new book this year? Probably not, right? Next year?
No.
If I had to rank them now,
B- ish.
They're a B. Yeah.
really?
They're a B-ish.
I would go as far as D. Like they're not competing with the 3rd edition books, I don't think.
I mean, they're still showing up. Like a lot of the time, you'll even on the slides. Like if you go back and look, they're showing up in the later tables more often than some of the other lists actually.
Maybe they're like more of a C then. I don't know. I'm not impressed with them. I think they have really cool. Like the Hearthstone is really cool, and I like what they've done with the army in White Dwarf update, but they're just not there. I'm not seeing them. I don't want to give them F because like they do see play, but I wonder if people would do better with other armies.
if they're not sitting at a decent B, then they are absolutely at like a C+. I've played against them several times. That is a good army.
Do we think they're the same tier as Kharadron then? Is that about right?
I think they're stronger than Kharadron.
I think they're stronger than Kharadron. Absolutely.
Okay.
I
think Kharadron really requires leaning into specific interactions in the hands of a player who can get every last bit out of them.
If you had the best Kharadron player in the world and the best Beast of Chaos player in the world, who would you say has a better chance of winning against most matchups? Let's say you'd say the Beast.
I'd say the Beast player.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really good Beast play is really cool to see. Actually.
Yeah.
Some of the better Beast players I've seen can do some pretty good stuff.
They're good. They're really good.
All right, I'll agree with you guys then. I'll say B. Sure.
Yeah.
Khorne not getting a book anytime soon. Let's the Blood Tie thing is strong, but their War Scrolls are still hot garbage.
Yeah, they are.
So let's call them a C for now.
Yeah.
Which means they've crawled out of F.
Even
yes,
C+,
they have.
Yeah, I would agree that they catapulted out of F, but still C.
Tzeentch is Tzeentch the first D? No, new book. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Can't rank them right now.
Yeah.
Slaanesh. The point changes make a difference.
They did.
They do.
Yeah.
It's very good.
So it's not an F tier army.
No.
C?
It's hard to say
D?
between B or C.
I think
I
that
think we'll hit
it
C.
all Daniel, I don't know. Like I feel like all things being equal, if we're talking about like in the hands of an absolute
Okay,
top tier player,
that's
they're
fair.
like high C, but
Mhm.
for everybody else, it's a struggle. Like the points made
true.
them not F.
That's
So let's call him D for now, with the
Yeah.
caveat that a really good player can still do well with them. D is an
Can
F,
still
and
do
that's
that's
yeah.
probably D. Yeah, that's
Knight
I mean,
Knight
that's
Relictor
B.
is D.
Yeah.
Slanesh are the Knight Relictor of armies.
Yeah.
Okay, fair.
That's fair.
Yeah. Nurgle A,
A.
maybe creeping on S along with
Yeah.
Nighthaunt and Stormcast.
one
I'd say
with
if like 3 armies are close to S, it's going to be Nighthaunt, Stormcast, and Nurgle.
Yeah.
And I'm trying not to be biased, but obviously I am because we play Stormcast. Skaven, I've only done initial impressions on Skaven. I haven't actually played a game with their new book yet. My initial impression is that they're somewhere around B, but it's because of the season 1 stuff just completely invalidating the clan rat playstyles. The like tar pit stuff that army can do is completely worthless right now as long as we have this bounty hunter thing. And without that, they've still got some cool stuff. Like Thankful on Lauchon is sick. That's like really, really sick.
Yeah, he's good.
But he's not enough to carry the army because that just doesn't really do that much against some things, right? So I'm going to call Skaven a B. That's my first impression, and I think it could be one higher or one lower than that after I do a more thorough review of their book.
I think it sticks B solidly and could be one higher. I don't think it dips down into C.
I wouldn't see it go down. I think especially like you were saying, Paul, in the immediate future, it's going to feel like a solid B army. And then when things start to shake out, people are gonna get good. They're gonna get good with them, and Skaven's gonna go up a tier.
I think that's what we should wait for with that army. Because they have so much of their army in this tar pit clan rat style, where you just swarm the body with boards, and that just falls apart. Like armies like Sylvaneth can really capitalize on that using lancers and things like that, or seekers, right? These units that would normally not be efficient enough to run. Like if you're, let's say we move out of this, we go back to like previous season, right? No Sylvaneth player would ever use lancers or seekers because they just don't do enough damage. Everybody would just use Kernauts with swords and Kernauts with bows and Kernauts with scythes. Scythes do nothing to clan rats. Like they tickle them. Like they just, it doesn't matter. Like, oh no, 6 damage per model. Like it doesn't matter. So like in that world, Skaven do well because they can take good traits. But in a world where Spite Riders do 2 damage per hit, that's suddenly an option they have. So, and other armies gain that option as well. Like Nighthaunt, I don't think have the damage to kill Skaven once we get out of this bounty hunter meta.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed.
So Skaven got to wait, and I don't know how good their elite builds are. I'm not sure they're B tier. My initial impression is that they have enough tricks that they can pull off a B. But if it falls short, I could see Skaven in this season being a C tier army, just because their elite stuff might not cut it.
Maybe in this season.
Yeah,
just in this season. That's and again, that's just my first impression. I got to do a deeper dive on when we do the review.
Yeah.
Slaves to Darkness. Hard to tell. They're getting a new book soon, so maybe we just don't rank them. They're like a hodgepodge.
Still, it's 4 months.
There's so many like supplements and campaign books for them, and Legion is in there, so it's hard to rank. Let's just wait. There's no sense in ranking it. It's a cool armor army. I hope it's good, but I hope it doesn't step on Stormcast too much in terms of identity.
Yeah.
I hope they get their own thing.
You mean to be the Stormcast army of chaos with chaos rules?
I just don't want them to be better paladins.
Is there?
Yeah, no way.
Is there like an armor stacking faction, like a super defensive one for each of the 4 Grand Alliances? Because you think Nurgle would be the chaos defensive one, right? Nighthaunt is for death. Destruction doesn't really have one.
I mean, Gargants are the most like.
I think having more armor armies is cool. I think heavy armor stacking is a good thing for the game to have. Otherwise, people just spam mortal wounds. Like they bring enough mortal wounds to kill the couple armor armies they need, and then they just ignore them.
Yeah. If what you're looking for is like an army identity that's based around being a heavy armor type build, it would be Stormcast for Order, not warriors for
Ironjawz?
chaos, slaves to darkness for chaos, OBR for death, and then I don't think we have one in destruction right now.
Arguably Ironjawz, but they're not very good.
Ironjawz, Ironjawz, like a brute build for Ironjawz could do it.
Mock Crushes are 3-ups. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. It's cool. Flesh Eaters, they're not getting a book anytime soon, but
nope.
C or D, something like that.
It's, I think, circling the drain on C, maybe D.
Yeah.
It's hard. Flesh
They're
Eaters,
not.
Their latest update wasn't great.
They can still fight first, fight twice, and that's really good. It's really, really good, unless they get roared. Then it's not so good. Yeah, they got problems. Nighthaunt, A, maybe S.
Maybe S.
Maybe S. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really.
Very strong army.
Aren't building them as efficiently as they could be. I'm really surprised. I'm kind of surprised.
It's like, yeah. Just check our review if you want to know my thoughts. Everything I said in the review, I think, still stands. Maybe Murmur and Banshees are actually playable now with the Endless Spell update. If Endless Spells didn't get updated, I don't think Murmur Banshees were playable. I'll die on that hill. I don't care. Bone Reapers are honestly looking solid. I'd say like B.
Nah.
They're good. They're actually
I don't think
good.
they're that good.
B, but I think they're C.
I think
they're a solid C.
No way.
Has the ability to be.
I think they're better than Kharadron. I think they're better than every army we've placed in C so far. I think Bone Reapers, after the point changes, with all the season 1 stuff, I think they're solid.
You keep leaning on these point changes, man. They're not that big.
It is, man. Especially when I think they're a bigger deal than you think.
It didn't. My son plays OBR religiously. I'm telling you.
It's
2 casters going down 30 points does not change the army identity.
But they have bounty hunter damage now, which is really good on units you weren't using before, like Stalkers and Death Riders and things like that.
Really like it.
Conquerors on Mortek is really good.
I'm not saying that it's not good. I'm just saying that I don't know if they're going to be a B. But you and I can disagree on it.
It's all right. We'll say somewhere between B and C.
Yeah.
Cool. Soul Blight, they feel like B. They've got enough play styles that you have to consider them as a serious threat. And they, if you don't, every time you build a list and you think, how am I going to deal with 60 zombie spam? That's a B tier army. Like if you have to consider it in your list building, that's a B tier to me.
Yeah, I think that they were A. I think that they were A and they're B now.
The veteran thing really hurts them.
Yes, it does.
Yep. You just end up playing Nighthaunt instead of them.
Yeah.
You just want to.
That's it. Yeah. Everybody who's playing, everybody wants to play Death is just playing Nighthaunt right now. It's true. Okay. Gits, new book, not worth talking about.
Yep.
Allegedly.
Oh yeah.
Maw Tribes, maybe new book, not worth talking about.
Who knows? There's another Destro book coming out.
It could.
I think Gits are still bad.
Yeah.
Ogre Maw Tribes are still average.
Yeah, just average.
Yeah, they're average. They're fine.
C as it gets.
Let's say, Ogres in C, like Gits in D. I've seen really good Gits players do really gross things. They're like a really finesse army, and they have to be because they're so weak. Like you have to be really good to kind of compensate for that. But they do things that other armies can't do. And I think the Loon Shrine thing is really good for them. Being one of the few armies with Battleshock community is really good.
When they get a good matchup, they really do love. Like they do kind of win hard. I haven't played a Gits army in the past like 6 months, but the last 2 RTTs I've gone to, I actually lost in placings to a Gits army twice now. When they get good matchups, like they
can do great.
Well.
Yeah, they can do great. And most importantly for Gits players, you will never not have fun playing a Gits army.
That's fair. I don't know. The trolls rallying on the 4-up is kind of insane, though.
Yeah,
that's kind of funny.
You got to wipe them out. First game of 3rd edition, one of the first games. I don't know if it was the actual first, but I remember I'm like, oh, Fulminators. Like this is when we were still working on our rankings internally, and I was thinking like, oh, Fulminators seem pretty good. They're like concussors, but a little more damage. First game I played against a guy, poor guy. He brought a 6 block of trolls. It was like an all troll list and then some squigs, right? And he had like 2 blocks of 6. And just off the flank, I gave my guys, +1 hit and Celestial Blades, and I charged up the flank. and I rolled the attacks for just the glaives, and it wiped out a squad of 6 trolls.
They were dead.
Just the glaives, and I was
They're
like,
a 5-up save, I think.
yeah, but they also have a 5-up ward, so like that's just so many wounds because they're 4 wounds apiece, times 6 models, 24, 36 effective health. Just the I didn't even roll the mount attacks yet, and he's like taking them off the table, and I just felt bad immediately, and because it was like a friendly game, like I wasn't.
I mean, if it was a 4 block of Fulminators, they're doing at least 60 damage.
Yeah, I realize that now, but like when you look at the battle tome, it's not obvious. They're like, oh, hold on, 5 attacks, 3 damage apiece. Like it's really obvious in hindsight, but
like crossbows, we didn't know.
No, you have to crunch the numbers. You have to see them on the table.
Yep.
It's not obvious from just looking at it. It is now, and it always will be going forward. Because in 2nd edition, everything exploded, right?
Yeah.
So having high damage units wasn't really a niche because everything was a high damage unit. Nothing was durable.
So are we done? Did we go through?
Sorry,
the
Ironjawz. Ironjawz. I still want to call Ironjawz like A. They're still okay.
I think they're A.
Bottom of A.
Ironjawz are great.
Bottom of A for sure.
Yep.
Just because they're very limited tactically.
To Chase's point, all of the other green skin armies out of that book are hovering at a B, B minus, maybe even less.
I'm willing to say Bone Splitters C and Grinning Blades in particular are B at least. Maybe A. If people can figure out the right build, maybe Grinning Blades could be A, but
I'd have to,
it's B.
It'd have to take a lot of workshopping.
Yeah.
It's not immediately obvious.
And then Behemoth, Sons of Behemoth, they're D.
They're
bad.
fell.
They're in a rough place.
Yeah. I'll compile like a little tier list thing and I'll post it in our Discord somewhere. So if people want to catch this like summary, it'll be up there. So you don't have to like go crazy trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
All right, that wraps it up.
Excellent.
Daniel, this has been a fun show, man. Looking forward to doing these every now and then.
Yeah, me too.
We'll try to put them out, as these events happen, as the meta shifts. We'll do little reports, and I hope you guys enjoyed it.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
As always, everybody, we appreciate you watching. Do the YouTube algorithm stuff,
Yeah. See, that's why we got you, Jack. I'm terrible.
Disagree with us? I know you are. If you disagree with us or have your own thoughts, please post them in the comments. We always read those. And if you'd like to join us on Discord, feel free. You don't have to be a Stormcast player. Yeah, it's a good time.
We have non-Stormcast channels. They're pretty active, actually.
Yes, they are.
I thought about muting them. They were too active.
Don't do it, man. Don't do it.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. See you in the next one.